Marvel, it starts when it links with a great clock of the Super God Academy. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451, Star Devourer's Attitude. Silver Surfer was defeated, and Captain Marvel used the simplest and most direct method to hit his weakness. Captain Marvel only understood this truth now, that is, to use the simplest method and the least effort to solve the enemy. One of the 4 messengers has been solved now, and I don't know when the remaining 3 will arrive. Thanos turned his attention to the monitoring screen, which showed the monitoring of the entire planet by the Super God system. Everything that happened on this planet can be learned here. You can contact the Lord of Shin first. He should have gone to the Devourer of Planets now. He may have more detailed information, Kassadin reminded. Let me do it. After Sun Wukong finished speaking, he directly requested a call with Li Qingyun. At this moment, in the universe, around the Devourer of Planets, on the spaceship of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Li Qingyun had just arrived here. He was in the spaceship at this moment, observing the situation of the Devourer of Planets. Brother Monkey? What's the situation over there now? Li Qingyun answered Sun Wukong's communication and immediately asked about the situation over there. Just now, Danvers has defeated the Silver Surfer. Currently, the other 3 of the 4 messengers have not appeared yet. Sun Wukong briefly told Li Qingyun about the situation. Although Galactus has 4 messengers, the probability of these 4 messengers going out together is not very high. After all, under normal circumstances, if there is a messenger as a vanguard, no one can compete with them, Li Qingyun said. He knew the detailed information of Galactus, but he was not sure how Galactus arranged these subordinates. After all, this information only came from the information that Li Qingyun learned before he traveled through time. This was also the first time he saw Galactus in reality. You continue to pay attention to the situation inside the planet. I have already started to prepare to launch an attack. If the 4 messengers have not appeared by then, I will temporarily remember them and let you take action when there is a chance in the future. Li Qingyun knew that several people on Sun Wukong's side wanted to take action, but this kind of thing still depends on the actual situation. It's impossible for you to go all over the universe to find them when the 4 messengers haven't all come, right? Yes, I know. Sun Wukong didn't force it, because he also understood the reason. They fought against Galactus and his 4 messengers because these people threatened their planet. But if they hadn't come and hadn't posed such a threat, the Super God civilization shouldn't have taken action. This behavior of actively challenging one of the 5 gods and chasing him to fight is not allowed. When Yang Heng met Li Qingyun at that time, he specifically reminded him not to block other people's springs. Lord Shin, should we pass a message to the other party first and persuade him to change direction? Star-Lord stepped forward. They had been following Galactus for a long time. The reason why they had not taken any action was not only because they couldn't beat him, but also because they were afraid that an active attack would cause some conflicts. Since you have this idea, go and tell him. If he is willing to leave on his own, we are too lazy to confront him head-on. Li Qingyun understood Star-Lord's concerns and didn't intend to refuse his proposal. Yes, we will send a message to the other party, Star-Lord agreed, then returned to the driver's seat and began to operate. Through the communication device on the spacecraft, his meaning was written into a message and directly transmitted to the huge celestial body of Galactus through the communication device. Galactus, who had been moving forward rapidly, had not noticed the existence of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now that he had received the message from Star-Lord, he finally realized that there was a spaceship following him from a distance. Soon, a message came back, which was sent by Galactus himself. The content of the message was very brief, with only one simple word: get lost. Galactus, one of the 5 gods, represents the balance of the universe. Galactus's status and his powerful strength have long made him look down on everyone else. Although Star-Lord sent the message in the name of the Super God civilization, the Super God civilization was just a human civilization formed by a group of ordinary people in Galactus' eyes, so he naturally didn't care. Haha, no wonder Eternity didn't let me persuade Galactus to leave in this way. It turns out that he had known Galactus' attitude towards this for a long time. Li Qingyun looked at the message and smiled casually. He went to see Eternity in person, but Eternity only asked him not to continue chasing after him after fighting back, and did not mention the persuasion like this. Naturally, Eternity knew Galactus's answer to this. What should we do now? Star-Lord looked at Li Qingyun, and he also felt that his actions just now were a bit redundant. I have already calculated the opponent's energy, and the preparations for the attack have already begun. As long as the opponent enters the empty area of the universe and does not cause a major impact on the surrounding galaxies, I will directly destroy it. Li Qingyun is not wasting his efforts. The moment he arrived at the Guardians of the Galaxy's spaceship, he was already preparing to launch an attack. The reason why he has not yet taken action is that the starry sky they are in at the moment belongs to a rare star system. Although there is no life planet born in this star system at present, Li Qingyun has seen the possibility of the birth of a life planet here. In addition, on one of the planets, there is a seed of the celestial group, which means that in this star system, a celestial group will begin to breed soon. The Living Tribunal and Li Qingyun have an agreement. Now the celestial group has raised him to a high position, so he will naturally give the celestial group some face. Anyway, there are many opportunities to attack the devourer of planets, so he naturally has no need to take action in the star system. After all, such a powerful attack, the explosion of a planet-sized celestial body, would have a great impact on the entire star system. It might affect the original layout of the star system and disrupt the conditions for the birth of life planets. Wait, the other party seems to have sent someone over. Rocket turned from the driver's seat and reported to Li Qingyun urgently. Send a message to Qingyun Star and ask them to send someone over. Li Qingyun gave the order directly, and Qingyun, who was standing by, immediately sent the news to Qingyun Star. On Qingyun Star, Sun Wukong and the others were still paying attention to the movements on Qingyun Star. At this moment, they suddenly received a message from Li Qingyun and realized that there must be an envoy on Li Qingyun's side. Chapter 452, Xingchen vs. Liu Chuang. There should be an envoy from Lao Li's side. Who among us should go over? Sun Wukong looked at Liu Chuang and Thanos. With Captain Marvel already taking action, there were only 3 of them left. Let me do it. Liu Chuang stepped forward. He was itching to fight with the envoys this time. Then you go. Thanos didn't seem to want to fight for it. Okay, open the wormhole immediately and teleport over. Sun Wukong saw that Thanos didn't want to fight for it, so he naturally didn't rush to go. Okay, Liu Chuang agreed, and then walked directly into the wormhole. After passing through the wormhole, Liu Chuang had already arrived outside the spaceship of the Guardians of the Galaxy and stood on the deck in front of the spaceship. Wearing dark alloy armor and holding a black battle axe in his hand, Liu Chuang stood in front of the spaceship with his head held high, looking at the second envoy of Galactus, Stardust, who was approaching quickly in the distance. This is a guy with white light all over her body. She has the same powerful energy as Silver Surfer, but unlike Silver Surfer, she doesn't need to step on a surfboard to get energy. Damn human, you dare to challenge the authority of God, it's really stupid. Stardust's voice came. It was a female voice. This Stardust also looked like a woman, but her expression was full of pride, obviously a strong and arrogant guy. Challenge God? We have been doing this kind of thing all the time, Liu Chuang said, holding the axe handle with his right hand, and powerful energy began to gather towards the axe. Liu Chuang is now challenging a messenger of God who has the power of millions of stars, so Liu Chuang can't relax at this moment. The most important thing is that Stardust has no obvious weaknesses. If Liu Chuang wants to deal with her, he can't use the same tricks as Captain Marvel to deal with Silver Surfer. Want to confront me head-on? Do you think you, a mortal, have the strength to do this? While Stardust was speaking, he swung his right hand violently, and a huge meteorite condensed in the surrounding space and smashed towards Liu Chuang. Liu Chuang looked at the huge meteorite that was coming down, and he jumped out with his feet, and chopped forward with his axe. In just a moment, the meteorite was split in half. Seeing Liu Chuang split the meteorite so easily, Xingchen frowned. Although she realized at the beginning that Liu Chuang was not an ordinary person, because ordinary people could not survive in the cosmic environment. But she still looked down on Liu Chuang. She didn't expect that Liu Chuang could actually chop the huge meteorite he summoned in half with an axe. When did such a powerful guy appear in the universe? Xingchen was puzzled. She was completely different from the Silver Surfer. She voluntarily followed the Galactus, so she didn't act like the Silver Surfer, who was almost mechanical. Moreover, Xingchen also collected a lot of intelligence in the universe, and she knew all the powerful people in the universe. For example, the Celestials, the Cosmic Observers, the Dark Doctor Strange, Thanos and Odin. But she had never seen someone like Liu Chuang, and she had never seen him in other multiverses. Come, Liu Chuang roared and jumped up again. The red light on the battle axe in his hand became stronger. This axe was the most powerful he could exert before. It was a blow that could split an entire planet in one go. This was the axe that shocked the entire universe when the No-Star God of War was first created. Xingjun saw Liu Chuang's attack and realized how powerful this blow was. She did not dare to be negligent at the moment and quickly waved her hands to condense a huge light curtain in front of her. This light curtain was created by the energy in her body. It was a barrier that could block the impact of a planet. Boom! A huge explosion sounded in an instant, and an unprecedented shock wave spread in the space. Even the surrounding planets were shaken by the impact of this shock wave. You have to know that this isn't a vacuum environment. If the power of the energy explosion was not too strong, it would be impossible to affect other planets around. Ha ha ha, so satisfying, Liu Chuang laughed. This was the first time he had used an attack beyond the planetary level after obtaining the Great Wall, Liu Chuang's celestial computer. This was also the peak combat power he could exert in the past. But now, such an axe strike was just a casual attack. You crazy guy, Xingjun had been blown away for hundreds of kilometers at this moment. She relied on the barrier to directly resist Liu Chuang's attack, but she didn't expect Liu Chuang to destroy her with a simple axe. Moreover, if she hadn't seen the explosion and quickly retreated with the power of the explosion, she would have been injured by the axe that followed. Drive the spacecraft out of this star system. Li Qingyun was in the spacecraft, and seeing the battle in space at this time, he already understood how fierce the battle that would break out next would be. Yes, Xingju and others also realized that it would be very dangerous to stay here, so after hearing Li Qingyun's order, they immediately began to control the spacecraft and flew quickly out of the star system. Almost at the moment when their spaceship just left, Stardust actually used her energy to pull a planet and smashed it towards Liu Chuang. Under normal circumstances, a star hitting Liu Chuang would just cause Liu Chuang to enter the planet. But now, Stardust controlled the planet and used it as a weapon. If it hit Liu Chuang hard, it would be equivalent to the weight of an entire planet, which would all be pressed on Liu Chuang in an instant. Seeing this, Liu Chuang naturally understood the consequences of being hit, so he did not take it hard, but instantly transferred to the outside of the attack range of the planet through the wormhole. The planet that lost its target of attack directly deviated from its original orbit and crashed into another planet. The two planets were about to be shattered in this collision. But the next moment, Stardust waved both hands at the same time, and the other planet also moved. Under the control of Stardust, the two planets were like two meteor hammers, chasing Liu Chuang and smashing him. Liu Chuang had just used a space jump and wanted to use it again, but his divine body was at a very high level and he was not good at using wormhole tactics. It was too late. So, in this space, he was hit by two planets. The two huge planets exploded violently after the collision. Liu Chuang, who was sandwiched in the middle, had to bear the weight of the two planets at the same time, and also endured the strong impact caused by the explosion of the two planets. Chapter 453. Using a planet to smash something is too cruel. Stardust, one of the four messengers under Galactus. At this moment, she was fighting with Liu Chuang. After suffering a loss in the first confrontation, she actually controlled two planets and smashed them towards Liu Chuang. The two planets hit Liu Chuang at the same time. Liu Chuang's body was hit in the middle by the two planets and hit by the shock wave from the explosion. You are just a mortal. I don't believe that you can't be killed by this. Stardust looked at the two planets that had become fragmented after the collision, and looked at the two planets that had exploded violently and were completely destroyed by the force of the collision, and expressed such emotion. In the distance, the Guardians of the Galaxy who had just flown out of this area were awe-stunned when they saw such a scene. Although they are well informed in the super god civilization, it is the first time they have encountered such a thing as using a planet to hit someone, and they will inevitably be shocked. Will Liu Chuang be okay? Gamora asked with some concern. Two planets are falling on me at the same time, who can withstand it? Star-Lord now thinks that even if Liu Chuang is not dead, he must be seriously injured. Lord Shen, do you want to help him? Rocket Raccoon looked at Li Qingyun, and after hearing what he said, everyone else also looked at Li Qingyun. It has come to this point, and it seems that only Li Qingyun has the strength to solve the current dilemma. No, Our god of war will not be unable to bear it just because of this degree. Li Qingyun is still calm at this moment. He doesn't think that Liu Chuang will not be able to bear it just because of 2 planets. After all, although Liu Chuang is only a 3rd-generation divine body now, his divine body strength is much stronger than that of an ordinary 3rd-generation divine body. Especially after coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, after he has obtained the blessing of the celestial computer Great Wall, his power is many times stronger than before. If he died just by being hit by a planet, how can his 10 strongest men fight against the dimensional demon Dormammu? As expected, not long after Liu Chuang finished speaking, a black figure slowly walked out from the 2 broken planets. The axe in his hand was still emitting red light. You're too cruel to use a planet to smash it. Liu Chuang spit out 2 mouthfuls of saliva while speaking, and there was a lot of sand in the saliva. Just now, the 2 planets sandwiched him in the middle. Liu Chuang's body was able to withstand it, but because he didn't put on his helmet in time, he ate a lot of sand. How is it possible? Stardust was shocked, even more shocked than when Silver Surfer saw that Captain Marvel could take his attack head-on. What kind of planet is this life planet that the Lord is going to devour this time? How can there be such a powerful warrior? Stardust was now shocked by Liu Chuang's strength. She began to contact Silver Surfer on the front line to find out what was going on. However, her contact did not receive any response, just as if Silver Surfer on the other side could not receive her information at all. Come again, Liu Chuang shouted at this time, and the voice was transmitted directly to Xingqian's ears through the dark energy communication channel. Then Xingqian saw that Liu Chuang once again held a huge axe and chopped towards him. Facing Liu Chuang's attack, Xingqian did not dare to be negligent. He quickly waved his hands and manipulated the boulders left on the broken planets around him to block Liu Chuang's attack. But now Liu Chuang has even experienced the situation of being hit by a planet, so how could he care about these few stones? His whole body shone with golden red light, and then he ignored all collisions and rushed directly towards Xingqian. Xingqian saw that no matter what kind of attack she threw, she could not stop Liu Chuang's footsteps, and she was visibly panicked. The power of 1,000,000 stars, Xingqian roared, and a strong light burst out from her whole body, condensing into a strong light, and shot towards Liu Chuang. Although this is the power of 1,000,000 stars, in fact, Xingqian released it without any preparation, and she could not play the best effect at all. The defense of the Great Wall is impregnable, Liu Chuang also shouted loudly. Behind him, a huge black shadow appeared at this moment, and inside the black shadow was the towering Great Wall. After being created by Li Qingyun and the god of death Karl, the Great Wall had already linked many stars in the Milky Way as energy support. At this moment, Liu Chuang mobilized the power of the Great Wall, condensed these powers on his axe, and chopped at the power of millions of stars shot from the stardust. The laser and the axe collided with each other, and countless tiny rays burst out in an instant, flying around. Some boulders that were relatively close and directly hit by these rays were immediately blasted into powder. Several planets in the distance also began to collapse immediately under the irradiation of these rays. The opponent's energy level is too high. I'm afraid it can't be completely blocked in a head-on collision. The voice of the Great Wall came, reminding Liu Chuang of the current situation. Is there any way to deal with it? Liu Chuang is a pure warrior. He is better at head-on confrontation. He really doesn't know how to cleverly apply other means to deal with such a situation. You can use the principle of space-time barrier to create a space-time barrier on the axe, and convert the absorbed stellar power into the energy you output at this moment, so as to achieve the same effect as the opponent, or even surpass the opponent. The Great Wall is a celestial computer. Its database is filled with data provided by the Big Clock. Naturally, there are also a large number of solutions to deal with various environments. Okay, then do it, Liu Chuang said, and the next moment, the Great Wall began to operate. In front of Liu Chuang's black hut, while resisting the power of millions of stars from stardust, a space-time barrier was created. The purpose of this space-time barrier is not to forcibly block Stardust's attack, but to withstand this attack, and then mobilize these stellar energies and convert them back into the energy that Liu Chuang needs to use. Stellar energy conversion. This technology is the most proficient for super god technology, and the efficiency of natural conversion is also extremely high. As a result, Liu Chuang's original situation of being unable to move forward quickly disappeared. Liu Chuang was holding a battle axe, and he was approaching Stardust little by little with the power of millions of stars. Chapter 454 Stardust Fall. No, this is impossible. How could you possibly block my full-strength attack? Xingqian looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. I blocked it, so what is impossible or impossible? Liu Chuang said. He was a brave man and fought bravely. Don't kill me. If you let me go, I can be your wife. Xingqian panicked. She just wanted to survive now. As long as she could survive, everything else didn't matter to her. Wife? You? Liu Chuang listened to Xingqian's words with disdain. Although he didn't have a sweetheart now, if he really had to choose one, there were plenty of candidates in the super seminary. Was it necessary to look for Xingqian? This is just my disguise. I took off this layer of energy on the outside, but inside, shut up, Chuang, I like angels. Liu Chuang didn't let Xingqian continue to speak, but continued to chop his battle axe forward, and it was about to hit Xingqian's head. Angel? What angel? Stardust was stunned. She was the messenger of Galactus. Not only did she possess incomparable power, but she also looked great. How could she not be as good as that angel? You don't need to know. After saying this, Liu Chuang's body once again burst out with a stronger aura. No, if I die, I can't be resurrected. Stardust was the messenger of Galactus, but she was not born with Galactus. She couldn't be like Galactus. Even if she was really killed, she would be resurrected in the universe in a blink of an eye. Galactus had 4 messengers. Every time he was reborn, he would find 4 messengers again. The titles of these 4 messengers were the same, but they were not necessarily the same 4 people every time. That has nothing to do with me. After Liu Chuang finished speaking, his axe had completely fallen, and it landed directly on Stardust. The axe originally contained extremely powerful energy. With the help of the Great Wall, the energy released by Stardust was also transformed and blessed to the battle axe, which made it even more powerful. Faced with such a blow, Stardust was instantly shattered by the powerful energy on it. One of the 4 great messengers was killed in an instant. What a pity. I think Stardust has a good figure, and I think his real appearance is also very good. Star-Lord has been watching the battle in front through the monitoring system in the spacecraft, so he heard what Liu Chuang said to Stardust at that time. Yes, Liu Chuang is single now. It would be nice if he could find a partner. Rocket Raccoon also took up Star-Lord's words. They all felt that Liu Chuang should find a wife. Well, you are all right. Li Qingyun also nodded. He had never thought about this problem before, but now seeing this scene, he suddenly remembered that he should pay attention to this problem. Liu Chuang and the others followed him from the Super God universe. Now it has been several years. He can't just ignore them. Liu Chuang's actual age is already several dozen years old, and it's time to find a partner. Liu Chuang said that he likes angels. Does he have someone he likes? Li Qingyun remembered that in the animation, Liu Chuang once saved Lingxi's life. It is reasonable to say that there is some affection between the two. But now Liu Chuang followed him here, and Lingxi stayed in the Super God universe. It is not difficult to find Lingxi, but the problem is that I don't know whether Liu Chuang really likes Lingxi or has fallen in love with other angels. After all, when Li Qingyun came to the Super God universe, many things had changed. Liu Chuang did not save Lingxi, and there were actually very few interactions between Lingxi and Liu Chuang. On the contrary, after arriving in the Marvel universe, in the Super God civilization, because they all came from the Super God universe together, Liu Chuang actually spent more time with Angel Leng, Angel Zhu, Angel Yunyan and Angel Fangxing. They have to figure out their own feelings, but since Liu Chuang said he likes angels, I'll help ask them. Li Qingyun now has Yan, Hexi, Qilin, Hila and Wanda. He is living a happy life now, but he can't just ignore his subordinates. The battle was over. After Liu Chuang dealt with Star-Lord, he returned to the spaceship and entered the spaceship. Chuangzi, you said you like angels. Who do you like specifically? Li Qingyun asked directly. Huh? Liu Chuang looked at Li Qingyun in confusion. What you just said to Xingqian, I think it's not groundless. You should have someone you like, Li Qingyun said directly. No, Liu Chuang shook his head awkwardly. Don't be shy. Since you already have this idea, just tell me directly. I'll let Yan be your matchmaker. Li Qingyun really thought so and wanted to find a suitable partner for Liu Chuang. Well, I will fight for it myself, so I won't bother you, sister-in-law. Liu Chuang knew that his thoughts were exposed. But Liu Chuang, was unwilling to pursue in this way, because with the character of the angels, if Angel Yan came forward directly, even if the other party didn't have that intention, he would probably agree directly. After all, The angels have always respected their king. Although Angel Yan is no longer the angel king of Mellow Heaven, she is still the king in the hearts of these angels. Okay, if you think so, I won't force it, Li Qingyun said, but in his heart, he knew who Liu Trang liked in his heart. When in the Super God universe, among the group of angels who followed, the person who had the most contact with Liu Trang must be Angel Fangxing. When the Xiangbinglian and the angels conducted the first reconnaissance operation against Demon Number 1, Liu Trang acted with Angel Fangxing and others. After that, when the Holy Kesha fell and the angels were in trouble, it was Liu Trang who followed Fangxing to save other angels. After coming here together, Liu Trang has been with the people of Xiangbinglian and the angels, so it is not surprising that the two have the opportunity to have further contact. Lord Shin, the planet devourer has left the area with dense planets. Rocket Raccoon's report brought Liu Trang and Li Qingyun back to their thoughts. So, it's time for me to take action. Li Qingyun turned around and looked outside the spaceship, looking at the planet devourer that was still flying fast. Chapter 455, Confrontation Between Gods. The devourer of planets finally flew out of the area with dense planets, and Li Qingyun could start preparing for the final attack. Although the battle between Stardust and Liu Trang just now also destroyed a lot of the surrounding planets, the core stars and the two with the seeds of the celestial god group were still fine. Therefore, Li Qingyun has been waiting for the devourer of planets to leave that area. And now, it's almost time. Li Qingyun took a step out, went outside the universe, stood on the starry sky, and blocked the devourer of planets. The devourer of planets still looked like a huge celestial body at this moment, and the countless dust lingering around it formed a sphere. However, Li Qingyun could still see the situation inside it. He could see a huge purple figure in a semi-sleeping state. Devourer of planets, if you don't wake up now, you will be killed by me in this dream, Li Qingyun said, and his words at this moment were like a thunder, exploding directly in the devourer of planets' mind. The devourer of planets was originally in a very special stage at this moment. Although he was awake, he couldn't wake up completely because of insufficient energy and hunger. He could be said to have been in a state of half-sleep and half-wakefulness. Li Qingyun's words were specifically aimed at his mind this time, so the impact on him was extremely huge. Li Qingyun's voice was to wake Galactus completely from his semi-sleep state. I said, get out. Previously, Star-Lord and the others sent a message to Galactus, and Galactus responded with only one word, which was get out. But now, Galactus said more words, because his mind had been forcibly awakened by Li Qingyun. Now it's not whether I want to get out or not, but if you don't get out, you will be completely shattered in a few minutes, Li Qingyun said. Almost at the same time he said this, a huge clock began to appear behind Li Qingyun, and then endless silk threads began to spread out from it. In these silk threads, there is an extremely powerful energy, which is the countless stellar energy that is constantly gathered from the stars in various parts of the universe. Li Qingyun is gathering almost all the stellar energy in the universe together. He's going to use the strongest blow to directly blast Galactus into powder. As if sensing the changes that were happening to Li Qingyun, the devourer of planets paused, and a huge head slowly emerged from under the rolling dust. Who are you? The devourer of planets was shocked by the strangeness that happened to Li Qingyun, but he was also wondering who Li Qingyun was. Lord of the Divine River, Li Qingyun, Li Qingyun replied. Lord of the Divine River, God of Chaos, the devourer of planets had obviously heard of Li Qingyun's name. After all, Li Qingyun was now a very special existence in the universe that could contact eternity. Although the devourer of planets had been constantly shuttling through the multiverse and constantly devouring the planets in the universe, he still knew something about some things in the universe. Even if he couldn't know more details about the sudden rise of a special person like Li Qingyun, he would at least know who Li Qingyun was. Yes, I am the God of Chaos. Li Qingyun had two titles, the Lord of the Divine River and the God of Chaos. It's just that in this universe, basically most people will call him the Lord of Shin. Because Li Qingyun was the Lord of Shin when he founded the Super God civilization. The title of Chaos God was obtained by Li Qingyun after he went to the Super God universe. Later, when he came back from the Super God universe, this title gradually spread with a promotion of people in the Super God universe like Sun Wukong. However, for cosmic gods like Galactus, they will still remember Li Qingyun's title of Chaos God, because this title makes Li Qingyun, like them, a god in the universe, not an ordinary person who is unknown. Since you are a god, why do you block my way? Galactus couldn't figure it out. As one of the 5 gods, any other gods, whether innate or acquired, would retreat when facing him. Why did Li Qingyun suddenly appear and block him? Moreover, he felt a little at this moment and found that 2 of his 4 messengers had lost contact. There was no response from the Silver Surfer who led the charge. Stardust, who had just come out to deal with the person who was in the way because he was being harassed, was also dead. He did have 2 other messengers, but they were not with him. Now he wanted to summon them back, but it was too late. However, he was not very willing to fight Li Qingyun with his own hands. The power of the Devourer of Planets was never at its peak, and his energy was not enough from beginning to end. Before going to the next planet and devouring it, the Devourer of Planets did not want to do anything. Because your next target is my territory, Li Qingyun replied. With just this simple sentence, the Devourer of Planets understood Li Qingyun's situation. In that case, I can only kill you. The Devourer of Planets already knew Li Qingyun's purpose of stopping him, so he naturally did not waste any more words. He just wanted to kill Li Qingyun as soon as possible, because only in this way could he continue to move towards his next target. The Devourer of Planets retreated his head back into the dust, and then a huge shadow appeared, and the energy in the shadow was constantly condensing. Is this the energy that Devourer of Planets, one of the 5 great gods, is going to explode? Li Qingyun could feel that it was the attack that Devourer of Planets was about to launch. Li Qingyun had no intention of dodging, because the attack he was concentrating at this moment was also ready to be perfected. This attack technique, which was condensed from the energy of almost all the stars in the universe through the Great Clock, can be said to be the strongest technique Li Qingyun has ever launched. Using such a technique to end the life of Devourer of Planets is also worthy of his identity as one of the 5 great gods. 2 techniques that condensed powerful energy. One was an acquired god that rose among humans, and the other was an innate god that existed before the birth of the universe. This attack between the 2 will inevitably be an attack that will shock the entire universe. At this moment, outside the universe, many eyes have been cast here. Chapter 456 The Energy of the Entire Universe. After the energy was condensed, Li Qingyun pointed his right hand forward, and a golden light burst out. This golden light was the energy of all the stars in the universe. This was the strongest attack Li Qingyun had ever made. At the same time, in front of Li Qingyun, the Devourer of Planets also released a purple energy, which bombarded Li Qingyun. 2 extremely powerful energies collided in space. In just a moment, an invisible energy wave was released and continued to spread in all directions. Li Qingyun's attack, the attack of the Devourer of Planets, the energy burst out by the existence standing at the top of the 2 universes. The effect produced was enough to affect the entire universe. In this moment, all the meteorite fragments around were shaken into powder. Even the Guardians of the Galaxy, who had been watching from a distance, forcibly opened the starlight barrier to protect themselves, so as not to be shaken to pieces in the aftermath of this energy. What a terrifying energy shock, even more terrifying than the last time the Lord of Shen caused a supernova to bombard the planet Hala. The Guardians of the Galaxy had watched Li Qingyun trigger a supernova in the Kree Empire. That explosion at that time has always been considered Li Qingyun's strongest attack, a powerful blow that could destroy a civilization in one go. But now, compared to the energy collision released by Li Qingyun and Galactus, it has become insignificant. I didn't expect that a small human like you could call up so much stellar energy in the universe. Galactus' voice came. As one of the 5 great gods in the universe, each of his subordinates has the power of millions of stars, and he himself is even more powerful than all the messengers. But now, looking at the stellar energy that Li Qingyun has called up, it is even more powerful than the energy gathered by his 4 messengers. And it is so powerful that it can be comparable to the strongest attack he has launched. It's just calling up stellar energy. As long as there is in this universe, I can call it up, Li Qingyun said. The star energy he is calling now is not only gathered from the big clock, but also from all the other celestial computers connected to it. Space-based computing group, small clock, Daozan Shen, Great Wall. All the celestial computers developed by Li Qingyun and the god of death Karl in recent times, all the stars connected to them in the universe, are gathering this energy together. Originally, Li Qingyun could use other energy in his body to deal with the Devourer of Planets, but with this attack, Li Qingyun wanted to try whether this fighting method is feasible. Through many celestial computers, all the stars in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe are connected in series, so in the future, when facing any enemy, Li Qingyun can use the energy of the entire universe. If this step can really be achieved, then in the future, the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe will be his, and he can become the real master of the universe when he needs it. The energy that Li Qingyun originally possessed can surpass the single universe itself. With 6 Infinity Stones in hand, Li Qingyun has another cosmic level of energy. Chaos Magic, Void Power, Anti-Void Power, Void Controller. With all these powers added together, the ability that Li Qingyun can control will become more and more huge, and his strength will become stronger. I didn't expect it. In such a universe, there is such a being like you. Planet Devourer looked at Li Qingyun like this and could only sigh. The same goes for those people in eternity and those guys in the God group. Why didn't anyone come out to stop you and let you do this? Planet Devourer is one of the 5 great gods. Because his own energy is always in an unsaturated state and in a hungry state, he needs to keep looking for suitable life planets to devour. But other gods don't need to do this. They can observe the universe and find some special phenomena in the universe. At this time, you still have the leisure to think about those useless things. After Li Qingyun finished speaking, he pushed his right hand forward violently, and the celestial computer behind him began to output energy further. As the big clock and other celestial computers exerted their power, the condensed energy became even greater, and the power released by Li Qingyun at this moment became even more powerful. The Devourer of Planets, whose attack was originally comparable to Li Qingyun's, thought that Li Qingyun was nothing special. After all, he was attacking in a hungry state, and he had not yet used his full strength. But what he did not expect was that Li Qingyun was not in a full strength state. He just stretched out his hand casually, and the power was actually increased. What? Shocked, Li Qingyun saw clearly that the Devourer of Planets' emotions at this time had become much more chaotic than before. How much strength do you have left? The Devourer of Planets asked back. The energy he released at this moment was also increasing. He himself had completely recovered from his half-asleep and half-awake state. He needed to use more energy to stimulate his ability. He had to release more energy to fight against Li Qingyun. My strength? Not even half of it. Li Qingyun had indeed not used half of his strength yet. What he was using now was only a part of his energy. He was using the power of the outside world. Nonsense, the Devourer of Planets roared, and the attack he launched immediately suppressed the energy that Li Qingyun had sent out. Whether it is nonsense or not, you will know it soon. After Li Qingyun finished speaking, he raised his left hand. With both hands exerting force at the same time, the projection of the large clock that appeared behind him became more powerful than at the beginning. At this moment, in the floating city on the earth, in the information hall of the super seminary, everyone was watching the situation on the screen. The Lord of Shen is mobilizing the computing functions of all celestial computers to provide energy for it. Death God Karl was here at this time. He is now the formal vice president of the super seminary. As for the principal, it has always been Li Qingyun. We are going to fight against Devourer of Planets, one of the 5 great gods. It is understandable that the energy provided by the large clock and a celestial computer is not enough, Angel Ling said. This is not the case. This is the Lord of Shen testing a new way of fighting. Death God Karl knew Li Qingyun too well. Li Qingyun's power was different from that of ordinary super soldiers. Chapter 457, Death of Star Devourer. Li Qingyun's energy, in addition to the super god technology of the super god universe, also includes the powerful energy magic and divine power in the Marvel universe. When Li Qingyun faced the Hades god Zisen before, he did not use celestial computers or anything, but only used his own energy to fight against the Hades god Zisen. The Lord of Shen is, Angel Chase couldn't figure it out. Since Li Qingyun could fight against the Devourer of Planets with his own ability, why did he use all the celestial computers under the entire super god civilization? There are several celestial computers. Among them is Li Qingyun's big clock that has been upgraded and strengthened many times. The Lord of Shen made arrangements when making these celestial computers. Each celestial computer is arranged in a different star region in the universe. The reason for this arrangement is that one day, all the energy of the entire universe can be used. What he should do now should be these. Death God Karl designed these celestial computers with Li Qingyun at that time. When Li Qingyun was arranging them at that time, Death God Karl was originally involved and naturally knew all this. It's like this, although Angel Zhu is a young angel warrior, and although she has not yet reached the level of the main god, her horizons have been broadened a lot after following Angel Yan for these years. At this moment, she heard what Death God Karl said, and she understood. Send a message to all those who have celestial computers, and let them turn on the power of the celestial computers to the maximum, and be ready to provide energy for the Lord of Shin. Since Death God Karl knew Li Qingyun's intention, he naturally couldn't just stand there and do nothing. Yes, I'll go find Sister Yen and Holy Hezai, angels who said, turned around and flew out of the information hall. There are a total of 7 people who have celestial computers in the super god civilization: Death God Karl, Morgana, Hezai, Angel Yan, Sun Wukong, Liu Chuang, Casa, and a super god system that provides computing support for the entire super god academy. Of course, this does not include Li Qingyun's. If Li Qingyun's big clock is also counted, the super god civilization has a total of 9 celestial computers. The big clock is actually no longer placed in the real universe. After Li Qingyun returned to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he placed the big clock in the Latitude universe he opened up. Therefore, it is the remaining 8 celestial computers that are now mobilizing the star energy in the real universe. They are respectively arranged in 8 different directions of the real universe. The star energy that each celestial computer can call is in the tens of millions, and this number is constantly increasing. Li Qingyun's super god civilization now controls the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Even though there are still cosmic forces such as the Sheer Empire and the City of Almighty in the universe now, no one dares to disobey them. This entire Marvel Cinematic Universe is the back garden of the super god civilization. Naturally, it is his own home. Li Qingyun will naturally find ways to mobilize all the energy in it, without damaging the life of the universe and the environment of the universe. The more applications, the better. The meaning of the God of Death, Karl, was soon conveyed to all those who have celestial computers. These people who have celestial computers are the most important people around Li Qingyun, and naturally no one will not support them. Li Qingyun was fighting against Devourer of Planets in front, and suddenly he felt that his mobilization efficiency had greatly increased. In fact, he also knew in his heart that the super seminary must have known the situation. Swallow, swallow, you are indeed not weak, but you will die in my hands after all. As Li Qingyun spoke, the output power suddenly increased, and the 2 energies that were originally in a state of confrontation immediately became an overwhelming crushing of Li Qingyun. How could it be? How could your power suddenly increase so much? Devourer of Planets was shocked. He had just released his full strength and thought that he could completely deal with Li Qingyun, but how come the energy burst out of the other party was much higher than his? Because I have a group of people supporting me behind me. As Li Qingyun spoke, the burst of energy further increased. Devourer of Planets was extremely shocked when he saw this scene. Damn it, if I was in my peak state, if I was not hungry, even if you gathered the power of everyone in the universe, you would not be my opponent. Devourer of Planets hated it now. He hated why he was in such a state, and why he had been in a state of hunger since his birth. If it weren't for his current state, as one of the 5 great gods, his strength would naturally be extremely powerful. How could he be here, and fall into such a situation just because he met a human? It's useless even if you regret it now. Li Qingyun knew that the Devourer of Planets had reached its limit. Under Li Qingyun's powerful offensive, the Devourer of Planets was still holding on, but his energy could no longer increase, so it was inevitable that he would be attacked by the energy released by Li Qingyun. With such a powerful energy falling on the Devourer of Planets, its death was inevitable. You know, you can't really kill me. The Devourer of Planets knew that he couldn't escape, but even if he was going to die, he wouldn't feel anything. As the will of the universe, as long as the infinite multiverse was still there, he would always be able to revive again. Unless the true God took action, no one in the universe could really eliminate him. So, his death was just this time, not his complete death. I know, I don't intend to completely erase you, Li Qingyun said. My purpose is to prevent you from destroying the planet under my rule, just to let you know that the super god civilization is my place, and my place cannot be destroyed by anyone, Li Qingyun said, and after hearing his words, the Devourer of Planets remained silent. He was one of the 5 great gods, but he was warned by a human, and he was warned by killing him once. It's time to end it. As soon as Li Qingyun finished speaking, all the energy he had condensed exploded directly at this moment, and the energy beam finally hit the Devourer of Planets firmly. The result was no suspense. The huge body of the Devourer of Planets exploded directly under the attack of this energy. The Devourer of Planets, one of the 5 great gods of this infinite multiverse, could not escape the fate of being killed by Li Qingyun in the end. The huge explosion could not be transmitted in the universe, but the energy fluctuations it produced could be seen by the entire universe. Chapter 458 Subsequent Treatment Plan. Galactus is dead. Galactus, one of the 5 great gods in the universe, was killed directly by Li Qingyun in the battle with him. In the Marvel Universe, Galactus has also been killed in other multiverses. But in those universes, every death of Galactus has a special reason. Either a large group of superheroes join forces, or Galactus' subordinates betray and kill him together, or they find a way to attack Galactus when he is weakest. But this time, Li Qingyun killed Galactus head-on when Galactus is in his normal state. Even though Galactus has never been in his peak state, he has been hungry since the moment he was born, but this hungry state is not his weakest after all. Li Qingyun was able to kill Galactus in a head-on battle by himself, which is enough to prove how strong Li Qingyun is. From this moment on, no one in the universe will dare to provoke Li Qingyun or this super god civilization. Because, there is no one in the universe whose strength can surpass Galactus. A being who can kill Galactus by himself, and has 10 strong men, a large number of super soldiers and superheroes under his command. With a huge power of the super god civilization, plus a powerful god, naturally no one dares to provoke such an existence. Looking at this, the remaining 2 messengers should not appear. Sun Wukong was in Qingyun's star, watching the situation in the universe at this moment, but shook his head helplessly. Planet Devourer was killed by the Lord of Shin. How dare his 2 messengers provoke us again? Thanos was also very clear about the current situation. Judging from Li Qingyun's performance today, after Galactus was killed, no one would dare to provoke their super god civilization again. Next, unless we go to fight others, no one will dare to fight us again. This world and our super god civilization will be peaceful from now on, Sun Wukong said so. What he said at this moment was naturally recognized by everyone around him, and it would also be the result recognized by all people with some ability and power in the infinite multiverse of Marvel. Cancel the defense program, everyone returned to their respective positions. Li Qingyun's order came, and then all the people of the super god civilization began to return to their original places. Sun Wukong, Kesa and Captain Marvel all returned to Earth, and Thanos continued to protect Qingyun's star and be the person in charge of this side. Li Qingyun also came back from space, and the Guardians of the Galaxy continue their space travel. This team has been wandering in the universe all the time, on the one hand, to carry out the adventures they like, and on the other hand, to perform patrol work in the universe for the super god civilization. Liu Chuang naturally came back with Li Qingyun, and after he came back, Li Qingyun also specifically asked Angel Yin and Qilin to pay attention and let them observe the personal feelings of these super soldiers and angels in the super god civilization. They are all a group of people who followed him from the super god universe. It's impossible for him to ignore them when something happened to them. That would be too inhumane. The crisis of the Devourer of Planets has been resolved. Next, we should rest for a while, and then prepare to launch a counterattack against the Hades god Zithan and the Dark Lord Dormammu. Li Qingyun had returned to Li Zai's yard at this time. The two sat by the pond, chatting around the koi fish in the pond. Yes, I must take all the chaos magic power of the Hades god Zithan. Only by completely transforming his chaos magic into my power can Wanda, Zhaoqing, Xiaoyan and others be truly safe in the future. Li Qingyun can choose not to attack anyone, because those people will definitely not dare to provoke him in the future. But Li Qingyun cannot ignore the Hades god Zithan, because the chaos magic mastered by the Hades god Zithan can always threaten Wanda and the 2 children Zhaoqing and Xiaoyan. I understand, but before that, I think we still have to go and see the situation of the Devourer of Planets, Zai reminded. Yes, Li Qingyun nodded. Although Devourer of Planets had been killed by Li Qingyun, they all knew that Devourer of Planets was the will of the universe and one of the 5 great gods. He would not be killed in the true sense. Today, Li Qingyun killed him here, but Devourer of Planets would soon be reborn in a corner of the universe. Devourer of Planets died in the hands of Li Qingyun at that time. He must have been unwilling to accept it. Maybe he would go to the universe to find some powerful treasure to enhance his strength and fill the weakness of his lack of energy in the hungry state, and then seek revenge on Li Qingyun. It's just that we have already agreed that we can't block the spring to kill Devourer of Planets. In this matter, we can't take the initiative to do anything except prevent him from making a comeback. Li Qingyun remembered the conversation between him and Yang Heng at that time. You don't have to block the spring, but you can go and talk to him. If you can show stronger strength or give him a step, maybe this matter will be over, Hizai suggested. Give him a step. Li Qingyun thought about this question and thought about what Hizai meant by this. After all, he is one of the 5 gods. He must feel bad for being killed by you. Go talk to him and give him a better reason. He can get away with it. Naturally, he will not bear grudge against us in the future. Even if he is heading towards other planets of our super god civilization in the future, he will bypass them when he knows it. Hizai said this out of long-term consideration. After all, for a cosmic will-like devourer that cannot be killed at all, it is better for both sides to take a step back and find a way to live in peace instead of being an enemy forever. I understand. After he is resurrected, I will find him in person and have a good talk with him, Li Qingyun said, and Hizai was satisfied to see Li Qingyun like this and lean over. The two of them spent the next time having a good time. While Hila and Wanda are not here, and Angel Yin and Qilin have other things to do, they can also enjoy their world of 2. However, Li Qingyun had always been thinking that it would be great if he could do it with a few people someday. But he couldn't do it too deliberately. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459 Death. For more than a month, everything was very peaceful. Li Qingyun enjoyed this kind of happy life with Hizai and the others. The super soldiers also traveled around the universe and relaxed, and even developed a few couples. After all, they were all strong and young people in their prime. It was not surprising that they would start to think about other things when nothing big happened. As the saying goes, when you are well fed and warm, you will think about sex. It seems that this adjective is not very accurate, but I can't think of anything else for a while. Li Qingyun was in the yard, looking at Zhao Qing and Xiaoyan who had grown up a lot. Xianxia has been learning how to manage civilization and how to rule planets with Hila, and there is a long time every day to train combat skills. There are only Zhao Qing and Xiaoyan. They don't have pressure from their mother. Li Qingyun allows them to do things according to their own interests, so they live a more relaxed life. However, these 2 little guys are also very motivated. They came to Li Qingyun to guide them in practicing magic when Li Qingyun was free. Seeing that the 2 guys were so motivated, Li Qingyun naturally would not discourage them, so he began to guide them patiently and let them learn from the simplest magic. Wanda and Qilin were watching this scene on the side, all with smiles on their faces. However, after watching for a long time, Killin's face gradually showed a sad expression. What's wrong? Sister Qilin? Wanda naturally noticed Killin's expression and asked immediately. Qilin wanted to say what was in her mind, but when the words came to her lips, she didn't know how to describe it. You see Zhao Qing and Xiaoyan, you also want a child, right? After all, Hila is an experienced person. Seeing Qilin like this, she can think that this must be Qilin who wants a child. Yet, Qilin agreed in a low voice. She really wanted a child, and wanted to have a child with Li Qingyun. This is easy to do. Next, I will give Qingyun to you, Hila said jokingly. Sister Wanda, Qilin was a little embarrassed. She was embarrassed to say such things so bluntly, even though she was a wife now. What kind of relationship do we have? Why should you be shy? Seeing Qilin being shy, Wanda teased her even more. They had lived together for so long, and even served Li Qingyun together. Even if they were shy at this time, it would not be a big deal. Just as the 2 were joking, Li Qingyun, who was originally teaching the 2 children to practice, suddenly stood up. His eyes were locked behind the 2 children, Zhao Qing and Xiaoyan. Since you are already here, why are you hiding? Li Qingyun said, and his words made the 2 women behind him who were originally joking stop. They all turned their heads and looked over at the same time. They looked at Li Qingyun and the 2 children. However, they did not see anyone else. What happened? Wanda walked over first to ask, and Qilin followed closely at this time. Take Zhao Qing and Xiaoyan and go back to the house first. Li Qingyun did not explain too much, but just asked Qilin and Wanda to take the 2 children away. Although the 2 were still confused, they realized that something must have happened when they saw the tone of Li Qingyun's words. And this matter must be not simple. After all, in the current universe, even the devourer of planets, one of the 5 great gods, is not Li Qingyun's opponent. and it is absolutely impossible for Li Qingyun to care about such trivial things. Seeing Qilin and Wanda, each holding a child's hand and walking back to the house, Li Qingyun waved his hand and moved 2 chairs. "Please sit down," Li Qingyun said, and then sat down first. Just after he sat down, in front of him, on the chair, a woman with an excellent figure and a face that was enough to overwhelm the country appeared. However, when Li Qingyun faced her, he did not feel like appreciating her beauty at all, because Li Qingyun knew very well that the person in front of him was one of the top existences in the universe. She is one of the 5 gods, death. There are 5 gods in the Marvel multiverse: Galactus, Eternity, Infinity, Annihilation, and Death. The most mysterious ones are Infinity and Annihilation, and the most well-known ones are Galactus and Eternity. But in fact, it is this Lady Death who likes to interfere in human affairs the most. She is different from Hela, the goddess of death. Hela's goddess of death is just one of her titles. She is just the executioner in charge of killing in Asgard, and has a certain ability to control zombies and death. But Lady Death is different. She has no other name, because death is her name and her body. Death is the cosmic entity and the will of the universe in the Marvel universe. She actually does not have a real body. She will only transform into certain posture according to her needs at certain times. But one thing is certain, the Death of the Marvel universe is female. It is also because of this that in Marvel Comics, Death has a love relationship with Deadpool, and she has become the object of pursuit of Thanos, and even gave birth to a child with Thanos. However, since Li Qingyun came to the Marvel universe, this was the first time he had seen this Lady Death. As expected of a man who can kill Galactus, I deliberately concealed my breath and figure, but you could actually see my existence at a glance. Death's voice was full of charm, a kind of temptation that was enough to capture people's hearts, and it was constantly flowing towards Li Qingyun. However, Li Qingyun remained motionless in the face of such charm. "Are you interested in my life and want to take me away?" Li Qingyun asked, but he then added. "Or, in fact, what you are interested in are my 2 children." Li Qingyun remembered that in the live-action film and television drama, the first appearance of Death was in the episode of The Witch Agatha, and the purpose of her appearance was because she had set her sights on Wanda's children. "You are an existence that can kill Galactus and be respected by eternity. Although I am one of the 5 great gods, I can't do anything to you." Death knew this very well, and knew this when Li Qingyun could instantly detect her appearance. "So, your target is my children?" When Li Qingyun asked this question, his tone became extremely cold, and a murderous aura was gathering on his body. Chapter 460, Being Entangled by Lady Death. "No, you are still my target, but I am not going to take you to death." Death shook her head. She did not want to go to war with a guy like Li Qingyun. "If you are not going to take me to death, then what is your purpose in looking for me?" Li Qingyun became even more curious. Wasn't Death the master of death? If she was not going to take him to the realm of death, then what else did she have to do? "How could I not come to see such a powerful person who could be treated as a guest of honor by eternity and could kill Galactus?" Death said, staring at Li Qingyun with her charming eyes. Just because of curiosity, Li Qingyun glanced at Death, and seeing her like this, his heart could not help but skip a beat. "Are you attracted to me?" Li Qingyun thought of Deadpool and Thanos. The unclear relationship between Lady Death, Deadpool and Thanos in the comics is very famous. Yes, Lady Death's tone of voice at this moment was full of charm, and the look in her eyes when she looked at Li Qingyun was so charming. Oh, I can't bear it. I already have enough wives, I don't need you anymore." Li Qingyun waved his hands quickly. He didn't mean to dislike too many women, but he really didn't want to have any entanglement with Lady Death. First of all, Death is one of the 5 gods, and she is the most powerful one among the 5 gods. She dominates the death of all things. Secondly, Death is not that kind of innocent girl, nor is she a serious woman. She can love Deadpool very much, and at the same time tease Thanos, and even have a son with Thanos. If Li Qingyun sticks to a woman like this, troubles may continue to appear in the future. If she gets jealous again, she may even attack the women around her. At that time, Li Qingyun doesn't know what to do. "I am Lady Death, and you actually rejected me so directly." Death was still breathing like orchids, but the meaning of her words seemed to be a bit threatening. "Why, you want to destroy me even if you can't get me?" Li Qingyun looked at Death. He really wasn't afraid of Death attacking him. If they really started fighting, with Li Qingyun's current strength, although he might not be able to kill Death, he could still fight against it. In addition, Death was one of the 5 wills of the universe, and she was a god. If she insisted on fighting Li Qingyun, it was unknown whether eternity and other gods would intervene. It was estimated that the life tribunal would have to intervene. After all, this was different from Li Qingyun's war with Galactus. Although Galactus was also one of the 5 gods, it originally maintained the balance of the universe. The process of death and rebirth would happen from time to time in it, which was not uncommon. Moreover, when Li Qingyun fought with Galactus, the most that was affected was a small area inside the universe. The impact was not small, but it was also limited. But if Li Qingyun started to fight with death, it would definitely affect the entire multiverse. Maybe he would destroy countless multiverses if he was not careful. The Life Tribunal manages the order between the gods and maintains the development of a multiverse. How could it ignore it at this time? But if death does not intend to take action, but keeps pestering Li Qingyun, then life will be difficult. First of all, death is powerful. She can appear beside Li Qingyun anytime and anywhere. As long as she wants to pester Li Qingyun. Unless Li Qingyun jumps out of the entire Marvel universe, it is absolutely impossible to avoid it. Secondly, death is a woman after all, and she is also very sexy and beautiful. Such a woman likes you desperately. It's okay for you to reject her, but how can you have the nerve to hit her? I can't bear to hit you, Death said, and then she actually walked over and bent down to Li Qingyun. In this posture, Li Qingyun can see the scenery on her chest at a glance. Oh my, Li Qingyun's heart trembled. The situation he least wanted to see still happened. This Lady of Death didn't want to force herself on him, she really wanted to rely on him. Be careful, I have a wife and children. Li Qingyun shrank back unnaturally. People like him, facing the Lady of Death at this moment, also felt a little overwhelmed. You have so many wives, one more is nothing. After saying this, Lady of Death raised her right hand and lifted the clothes on her shoulders, revealing her shoulders very tempting. Wonima, Li Qingyun disappeared in an instant, and when he reappeared, he was more than 10 meters away. However, just as he dodged, Lady of Death flashed and chased him. And this time she was even more aggressive, taking off more than half of her clothes, and hanging her arms directly on Li Qingyun's body. If you want to beg for mercy, I will fight you, Li Qingyun warned. Come on, hit me, as long as you dare to hit me, I will dare to feel good. Li Qingyun was completely speechless. He found that he finally met an opponent this time. It was different from all the people who appeared before. No matter how powerful the enemy is, Li Qingyun can defeat him and kill him. Even if it is the devourer of planets, Li Qingyun is not afraid of it. At most, he can block the spring water and kill it once it resurrects. But now the Lady of Death is completely different. It is not easy to kill him, and he can't drive her away or avoid her. In the end, Li Qingyun can only choose to ignore her. He just pretends not to see her. Anyway, even if the Lady of Death hangs directly on him, it will not have any effect on a strong man like Li Qingyun. As for her stripping him naked and seducing him, Li Qingyun can bear it. After all, at this time, Li Qingyun has 5 top-notch wives around him. When he is with these wives on weekdays, his concentration can be considered to be trained. Even if the Lady of Death deliberately disgusts Li Qingyun and wants to show others how she is lingering with Li Qingyun can also use his ability to cover it up. Anyway, outsiders can't see anything. However, Li Qingyun would not go to a public place. He didn't even go to see other people and stayed in the yard where he lived. Chapter 461, Good Men Are Afraid of Clinging Women. At the beginning, everything was fine. But after a day or two, Qilin and Wanda felt something was wrong. Later, the angels Yan and Hila who came back from outside also noticed something was wrong. Li Qingyun could only cover it up and try his best to show that there was nothing special. However, on the 3rd night, the situation could not be controlled. Qilin came, and she was wearing a sexy white gauze dress, which showed her figure perfectly. Her eyes and charming movements all showed her thoughts. If it was a normal day, Li Qingyun would naturally be excited to see Qilin like this. Although they have been together for a long time, Qilin and the others rarely show their sexy scenes like this to deliberately tease him. Now that Qilin is like this, Li Qingyun naturally understands what she means. Li Qingyun even knows that Qilin wants to have a passionate relationship with him so that he can have a child. But the current situation is different from the past. There is still a Lady of Death entangled in him. Qilin couldn't hold back her desire to have a child, and she didn't know if it was because of her deliberate teasing. Li Qingyun's reaction was even stronger than usual. so Qingyun also behaved more enthusiastically. At this moment, Death was also very excited to see such a scene, because Death knew that his chance had come. "Ah, never mind," Li Qingyun shouted, and then stretched out his left and right hands at the same time, grabbed the arms of the two people at once, and pulled them all over. The figure of Ms. Death also appeared in front of Qingyun without any cover. At noon the next day, the three of them looked at the bright sun outside. "I said that you were a little bit wrong these days. It turns out that she has been sticking to you." Qingyun naturally knew the situation of Ms. Death. She didn't want to think too much, and now that she was free, she felt that this Ms. Death was so annoying. "You know, if it weren't for Ms. Death, I don't want to, but she is too shameless." Li Qingyun didn't give Death any face at all, because the cause of all this was the shamelessness of Death. Death didn't feel annoyed when she heard Li Qingyun say that. She even felt a little excited. Originally, she was only very interested in Li Qingyun because of his strength and ability. Later, when she saw Li Qingyun resisting her so much, she wanted to get Li Qingyun even more. As a result, in the past 3 days, she used all her tricks to seduce Li Qingyun, and she also aroused her own desire. "I am shameless, so what? If I am not shameless, can I get you?" Lady Death fingers gently fiddled with Li Qingyun's face, as if to tease Li Qingyun again. "Humph! Shameless," Qingyun snorted coldly, and then turned over directly. She put on her clothes and left directly. "Alice," Li Qingyun sighed, then turned over, tidied himself up, and went directly to the Super God Academy. He hadn't appeared in front of everyone for a few days. He had to go and see if his brothers had anything to find him. Lady Death seemed to be satisfied and stopped pestering him, giving Li Qingyun this time. However, all this did not last long. After a few days, Li Qingyun had just had a few days of peace, and then Lady Death came again. Li Qingyun was too lazy to pay attention to her at first, but when she saw that Li Qingyun ignored her, she immediately pestered him again. After the first time, Li Qingyun naturally did not shy away. It happened that recently, Lady Death seemed to like this feeling. Angel Yan, Wanda, Hila and Hizai also knew that there was such a person as Lady Death, and they also knew how extraordinary her identity was. They had no choice but to accept it. And they seemed to have the intention of deliberately teasing Lady Death. Li Qingyun had fantasized about it for a long time in the past. It finally came true one day. Li Qingyun began to enjoy this shameless life. As long as he had the energy and the body could bear it, in fact, no man would not like such a life, right? But Li Qingyun was the god of chaos. His divine body's ability to recover and his strength allowed him to ignore all consumption. Until more than 2 months later. As everyone rested, Li Qingyun convened a high-level meeting within the Super God civilization, and all the super soldiers and superheroes gathered in the hall. This was something that Li Qingyun had been preparing for a long time, a war against the god of the underworld, Zizan, and the Dark Lord Dormammu. "We spent more than a year preparing for the counterattack against Zizan and Dormammu. Now everything is ready, and you have rested for 2 or 3 months. It's time to take action." When Li Qingyun said this, everyone naturally understood what Li Qingyun meant, and they had already guessed that this meeting would be for this. "I think there is no need to gather all the people together this time," Sun Wukong said. After the incident with the Devourer of Planets, they actually understood that the strength of the Super God civilization is now very strong. To deal with the two-dimensional demon gods, there is no need to gather almost all the forces in the civilization to fight against the other party as they did in the past. Indeed, I didn't plan to mobilize all my men this time. Li Qingyun had prepared for the attack with a whole army at the beginning. But after more than a year of preparation, the final development was better than he expected. The development of the astronomical computer was better, and the overall combat effectiveness of the super soldiers was much better than at the beginning. The overall strength of the superheroes in the Marvel Universe has also improved a lot. Captain Marvel, Hulk, Thor and others are much stronger than before. Chapter 462, 2 Groups. We need to split into 2 groups when we go to the dimensional space this time. Follow me all the way to the dimensional space to attack the Hades god Sithan and the Dark Lord Dormammu. Stay in the Super God civilization all the way. Keep an eye on the situation in various places of the Super God civilization, and also pay attention to the situation of the entire universe at the same time. The situation of the entire universe. Everyone was a little surprised when they heard Li Qingyun's words. They could understand that they split into 2 groups. After all, if they went to attack the Hades god Sithan and Dormammu, They did not need to attack both of them at the same time. They could choose to defeat them one by one. Leaving some people in the super god civilization is naturally to prevent them from attacking one of the dimensional demons, while the other dimensional demon will directly invade the real universe to steal the house. The Hades god Sithan and the Dark Lord Dormammu are both real dimensional demons. They have the ability to mobilize the energy of the entire dimensional space, and there are also countless life forms in the dimension where they are, Li Qingyun said. The last time we faced them, they didn't use all their strength, because under normal circumstances, they couldn't mobilize all their dimensional energy into the real universe, but this time, I think they will fight us at all costs. Li Qingyun is going to lead a large army to directly attack their lair this time. Once the effect of this war is achieved, they will definitely kill the god of the underworld, Zizan, and the Dark Lord Dormammu. In a war of life and death, how could these two people care about other things? It's not surprising that they will do anything to survive. If this is the case, we really need to understand the situation of the entire universe clearly, and we must prepare everything to avoid the arrival of a devastating disaster. Angel Yan understands how terrifying it is for a dying person to counterattack wildly. That's right, when that time comes, they will directly detonate the entire universe to destroy our foundation, etc., which are all very likely to happen, Li Qingyun said. If that's the case, we need to guard against the entire universe at the same time, and I'm afraid we need to use all the celestial computers at the same time. Death Carl is the person in charge of developing all the celestial computers of the super god civilization. Now that the super god civilization can monitor the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, the person who knows the most about it, except Li Qingyun, is Death Carl. Yes, if we want to monitor the situation of the entire universe, we need all the celestial computers to stay in the real universe at the same time. Li Qingyun agreed with Death Carl's statement. This time, he really planned to let all those who have celestial computers stay in the real universe. If all celestial computers stay in the real universe, then who will go with you to the dimension space to deal with the dimensional demons and their men? Angel Yan expressed his worries. Among the 10 strongest men of the super god civilization, 6 have celestial computers. If the 6 strong men with celestial computers are left behind, wouldn't Li Qingyun only have 4 left to take with him? Moreover, among the dimensional demons to be dealt with this time is the Hades god Sithan, so Wanda cannot go with him. So in fact, Li Qingyun can only take Thanos, Hela and Captain Marvel. There is a saying in the universe that our super god civilization has 10 strong men besides me, but in fact they have missed some people, Li Qingyun said. He knew what Angel Yan was worried about, and he also needed to use some explanations to tell Angel Yan and the others about the current situation. The super god civilization has a total of 9 celestial computer systems. My big clock will always be with me, and 7 of the other 8 celestial computers belong to individuals. Cass's performance on the battlefield is very strange, so those people in the universe don't know that Cass's strength is also very strong. Therefore, there will be a total of 8 first-line strong men left at that time, that is, the 7 of you who have celestial computers, and Wanda who can't go with me to attack the Hades god Sithan. This is the group of people responsible for defense arranged by Li Qingyun. The team is led by Sun Wukong and consists of 8 people, including the god of death Carl, the king of celestial base Hexi, the king of demon Morgana, the king of Skyblade Yan, Liu Chuang, Kesa, and Wanda. Except for the 7 of you who have the celestial computer, the only people who can be at the same level as you in the super god civilization, apart from Hela, Carol, and Thanos mentioned in the sword fight, are actually Thor's strength, which has reached the first line level. Thor, as the son of Odin and the king of Asgard, was once able to defeat Thanos on his own in the movie. However, after Li Qingyun traveled through time, many of the pains that should have been borne by Thor were solved by Li Qingyun. For example, Hela and Thanos, 2 of Thor's mortal enemies, one became Li Qingyun's wife, and the other was also defeated and subdued by Li Qingyun. Because of this, Thor's growth rate is a little slower than in the movie. But as time goes by now, Thor's strength has improved. If they really fight, Thanos and Carol, 2 of the top 10 strongest men, may not be his opponents. In addition, I will bring Doctor Strange with me to the dimensional space of the dimensional demon this time. The strength of this magician is now very strong. Doctor Strange, after the Battle of Kamartaj more than a year ago, the magicians of Kamartaj have officially become part of the super god civilization. On weekdays, Li Qingyun will not interfere with them, nor will he let them do anything. But since this time it is a big war, They naturally have nothing to say if they are asked to participate. And Doctor Strange's strength can naturally reach the first line level. If he can reach the level of the Dark Doctor Strange of the multiverse, he can reach the top of the top 10 strong men, even stronger than the God of Death Carl. However, in the infinite multiverse, the only Doctor Strange who can reach that level is the Dark Doctor Strange. If that's the case, your combat effectiveness is also good. After listening to Li Qingyun's analysis, Angel Yan was able to determine the strength of Li Qingyun's team. With 5 first-class people following him, plus Li Qingyun's own strength was overwhelming all of them. If there was still a problem, it would be that their super god civilization was simply incapable of fighting this battle. But no matter from which angle to analyze, their super god civilization was sure to win when facing the Hades god Sith and Dormammu. Chapter 463, All-Out Attack. For this battle, the super soldiers will stay behind, and the superheroes will follow me. This is Li Qingyun's detailed arrangement for the two-pronged division. The super soldiers are stronger, but the number of superheroes is greater. Li Qingyun wants to attack the dimensional space occupied by the dimensional demon. The strongest dimensional demon must be dealt with by Li Qingyun himself, and the people he leads are mainly responsible for clearing the miscellaneous soldiers. When clearing the miscellaneous soldiers, there must be enough manpower to deal with them. Among the two factions of the super god civilization, the superheroes have more people, so it is naturally most appropriate for them to follow Li Qingyun. It can be said that the arrangement of dividing the troops into 2 groups this time was originally the most reasonable arrangement. Everyone understood this, so everyone began to prepare according to what Li Qingyun said. After Li Qingyun's order was issued, many superheroes who had been scattered outside the Earth began to gather towards the Earth. The first to arrive was Thor, the god of thunder from Asgard, who directly brought the 3 warriors of Asgard, Sif and a small team of Asgardian warriors. If it were in the past, Thor would not fight the army because the army's combat effectiveness was not high and there would be casualties if he brought them out. But this time, he knew that he was going to deal with the miscellaneous soldiers, so he brought the army with him to make up for the possible lack of numbers. Of course, with the current resources and conditions of the super god civilization, it is not a problem to equip them with new defensive armor and increase their safety factor. After Asgard, Hela led half of the Death Army from the large Magellanic Cloud back. The army that Thanos brought back from Qingyun's star naturally included the people gathered by the 3 accusers. The Guardians of the Galaxy also brought a group of plunderers, who were recruited in the form of employment, including Ronan. On Earth, Wakanda and Kamartaj, in addition to their superheroes, also had some elite personnel to follow. In short, the total number of the team gathered this time exceeded 100,000, which was the first time that such a large number of troops were assembled in the war in which the super god civilization participated. In the past, battles were basically fought by superheroes and super soldiers, and soldiers were rarely called up. In the super god civilization, there is actually another team, the Shen Metra led by Shi, but all of this team stayed behind, and they will be the key force to assist Sun Wukong and others in defending the real universe. After all the personnel were gathered, Li Qingyun immediately mobilized a large celestial spaceship and used it as the base camp for the expedition. This celestial spaceship was built by Li Zai while Li Qingyun was building many celestial computers. Although the current super god civilization has a considerable scale, it does not have a war carrier such as a celestial spaceship. The reason why it has not been built before is that with their strength and their fighting style, there is no need to apply celestial spaceships. But this time, going to the dimensional space itself requires a springboard to provide a foothold for ordinary soldiers. In addition, as a huge interstellar civilization, it seems a bit shabby without a symbolic large spaceship. So building some celestial spaceships can also serve as a facade. Therefore, this time when going to the dimensional space, Li Qingyun mobilized a celestial spaceship, which led several spaceships to start this war. Everything was ready. Li Qingyun used his ability to directly open a large space portal. They would pass through this portal and directly reach the interior of the dimensional space. However, the moment this space portal appeared, the war had already arrived. Almost at the moment when the space portal was just opened, a large number of dimensional monsters had already rushed out. Each of them was ferocious, and their number was so huge that it seemed to sweep over like an overwhelming force. Start the heavenly punishment bombardment and directly clear the passage of the portal, Li Qingyun ordered, and the celestial spaceship immediately began to adjust its energy. One after another, Light balls flew out of the spaceship and bombarded those dimensional monsters along a straight line. Under the attack of the heavenly punishment bombardment, these dimensional monsters had no way to resist, and the passage was naturally cleared out quickly. However, the number of these dimensional monsters is innumerable, and they are not afraid of death at all. Just after a large number of them were cleared, more dimensional monsters will continue to attack. Predator Corps, maintain the safety of the space channel for the celestial spacecraft to pass through, Li Qingyun said, and a large number of small spacecrafts immediately flew out of the several large spacecrafts that were originally surrounding the celestial spacecraft. The Guardians of the Galaxy were also among them. These Predator Corps troops were led by Star-Lord. As these spacecraft formed a defensive barrier around the portal, through the powerful firepower network they built, many dimensional monsters could not get close to the area where the celestial spacecraft was located. Leviathan, Kree Corps attack. Your mission is to be the first to break through the portal and clear out a part of the safe area on the other side of the portal. Li Qingyun looked at Thanos and the three accusers beside him. They were once war criminals captured by the super god civilization, but now they are all lords who surrender to the super god civilization and surrender to Li Qingyun. Yes, the three of us will personally go in command. The three accusers walked out at the same time. Well, be careful, Li Qingyun reminded. The three people felt warm in their hearts when they heard Li Qingyun say this. As prisoners of war, they were lucky to be reused by the super god civilization. Now they were so cared for by Li Qingyun, so they were naturally grateful. Yes, the three agreed at the same time, and then turned around and left without hesitation. They personally led the reorganized Kree Corps, led tens of thousands of single combat spacecraft, and flew out of the large mothership behind the celestial spacecraft. Most of the 100,000 troops that attacked the dimensional space this time were brought by Thanos and the three accusers. They selected a large number of soldiers from dozens of life planets under the super god civilization and formed a brand new guard corps. Li Qingyun allowed them to do this, and even allowed them to name this corps after the Kree Empire, so this time they brought more than half of the elite in this corps. The Kree Corps attacked, and the Leviathan monster was in their team, cooperating with them to launch a charge. Chapter 464 Entering the Dimensional Space. Leviathans are a relatively bulky combat unit. Apart from their huge size, they have no other combat capabilities. But now, what they want in this legion is a meat shield. With the huge bodies of these Leviathans rushing to the front to attract firepower, the large number of single-person combat spacecraft behind can enter the other side of the portal more safely. Li Qingyun can ignore the casualties of the Leviathans, because these are man-made creatures and can be sacrificed at will like tools. But the pilots in the single-person combat spacecraft behind can't. They are elites selected from many life planets and are all under Li Qingyun's command. Although it is impossible for wars to not kill people, if possible, Li Qingyun will never let his subordinates make fearless sacrifices. This is one of the qualities that a leader must possess. With the entry of the Leviathans, they were indeed the first to be attacked fiercely. Those dimensional monsters rushed up desperately and bit and gnawed them frantically. A large number of vanguards rushed out of the Leviathans. These vanguards are also biological weapons created by Thanos through gene cloning. When Thanos created his power in the universe, he used the two major legions of Chitauri and Vanguard as his helpers. The Chitauri are extinct, but the Leviathans in the Chitauri Legion and the Vanguards can still be created again through gene cloning. However, in order to avoid suspicion, when Thanos recreated these two species, the number was not large. This time, in order to support this counterattack, Thanos brought all the Leviathans and Vanguards. Now, the Leviathans are the first to enter the dimensional space, absorbing the attacks of the dimensional monsters with their huge bodies, and the Vanguard Corps rushed out of the bodies of these dimensional monsters, forming the first wave of charge and disrupting the lineup of the dimensional monsters. And after them, there are a large number of single combat spacecraft. The firepower of these single combat spacecraft is not strong, but they win in large numbers. After they enter the dimensional space, relying on the advantage of numbers, they can quickly open a huge gap, allowing the celestial spacecraft to enter the dimensional space smoothly. The Kree Legion has secured a front position, but the enemy is too numerous and their firepower is insufficient. I'm afraid they won't be able to hold out for long. The intelligence personnel quickly relayed the information sent back from the front to everyone in the hall. Begin the space jump. Li Qingyun gave the order directly, and the huge celestial spaceship immediately moved forward and began to cross the space portal. On the other side of the portal, The dimensional monsters obviously knew that if the celestial spaceship passed through the portal, it would cause great pressure on them, and a wave of even more crazy attacks began to erupt. Most of the Leviathan monsters had been killed, and the vanguards were almost killed or wounded. The Kree Legion was struggling to hold on, and the huge defense line they had built was also beginning to collapse at this moment. There are too many dimensional monsters. The Kree army can't hold on any longer. The celestial spaceship is teleporting. It will take at least 3 minutes to complete the teleportation. We must provide support to the front line as soon as possible. Otherwise, if they launch a full-scale attack and destroy the transmission channel, our celestial spaceship will be stuck in the middle and cut in half. Various messages were constantly coming out of the command hall. Let us go. Thor walked directly to the middle of the hall and said to Li Qingyun on the throne. Be careful. Li Qingyun looked at his old brother. After he went to the Super God universe, he and Thor seemed to have less contact, but at critical moments, their hearts could still be united. Don't worry, my Asgard army has also been strengthened a lot over the years, Thor answered confidently. Yes, Li Qingyun nodded. After getting his response, Thor turned around and walked out of the hall. When he was about to reach the gate, the 3 warriors of Asgard and Sif followed closely behind him. Outside the square, hundreds of Asgard Legion soldiers were already. They rode on Pegasus, each of them covered their entire body with armor, and the weapons in their hands were all flame-class weapons. Asgard Legion was the first team that Li Qingyun armed. They all participated in the many large-scale wars that Li Qingyun launched in the past. Now that the super god civilization has developed, there are nearly 100 life planets in the entire civilization. If all the armies of each planet are calculated, there are more than tens of millions. But among these huge armies, in addition to a large group of super soldiers and superheroes at the core of the super god civilization, there are only 2 most special and powerful armies. The first one is naturally the Shen Mecha Force, created by Li Qingyun and directly under his control. The remaining second one is the Asgard Legion. In the past, Li Qingyun's support for the Asgard Legion was still limited, at least not everyone had equipment like flame-class weapons. But with Li Qingyun's return from the Super God universe, Hela gave birth to a son for Li Qingyun, and her family relationship with Thor and Loki was restored. This Asgard army became one of Hela's helpers. Based on this, Li Qingyun's support for the Asgard Legion is naturally greater than before. It is normal to equip each of them with flame-level weapons and nano-level defensive armor. This time, the counter-attack against the Hades god Zizan, the Shen Mecha Corps, all stayed in the Super God civilization, so the strongest army brought this time is naturally the Asgard Legion. Now someone needs to maintain the safety of the entire outer defense line, and it is most appropriate to let them fight. With a burst of war horses neighing, the Asgard Legion of 800 people took off. They directly passed through the space-time shield outside the celestial spacecraft and entered the area of dimensional space. Then, the 3 warriors of the Asgard Palace and the 4 people of Sif led 200 people respectively, and spread out in 4 directions at the same time. Thor did not ride on Pegasus, because he could completely rely on the storm axe in his hand to fly. And Thor needed to play a bigger role. He had to support all directions at any time to ensure that his soldiers would not suffer large-scale casualties on the battlefield. In the tens of thousands of defense corps, only 800 people were added, but the effect that these 800 people could produce was greater than that of the tens of thousands of single combat spacecraft. Chapter 465, A Cosmic War. Thor led the Asgard Legion to join the battle tonight, and the defense line, which was originally somewhat precarious, was immediately reinforced. 3 minutes passed quickly. The celestial spaceship finally entered the dimensional space smoothly. Super God number 1 has successfully entered the dimensional space. Immediately start energy transmission, stabilize the space energy of the portal, and let all subsequent legions come over. The person in charge of command was quickly allocating the energy of the celestial spaceship. With the energy supply of the celestial spaceship, the space portal can be more stable. Even if there are dimensional monsters who want to destroy it, it will be difficult to do so in a short time. Remove the original defense formation and change to free attack. The defense lineup is to maintain the stability of the portal so that the celestial spaceship can be successfully transmitted. After all, the transmission from the real universe to the dimensional space is different from the cross-space transmission in the original universe. It is not that it cannot be interrupted after the transmission begins. But in fact, the defense lineup is a very disadvantageous way of fighting in battle. Just like in the movie Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, the Nova Corps would not be at a disadvantage when facing Ronan the Accuser's Darkster, because their spacecraft was more flexible and could destroy the Darkster by relying on their advantage in numbers and attacking for a long time. But at that time, because Ronan the Accuser had the Power Stone in his hand, once the Darkster landed on the ground, it would directly deal a devastating blow to the entire planet. Therefore, in the combat plan at that time, the most stupid defense mode was adopted, using the Nova Corps spacecraft to connect with each other to build a defense barrier in order to forcibly block the Darkster from descending. The final result is also obvious to all, and the entire Nova Corps was almost wiped out. In today's battle, although the Kree Corps is not like the Nova Corps at that time, they also adopted the positional defense method after all, so they also suffered great losses in the previous battle. Now that the Celestial spacecraft has shuttled over, the subsequent Celestial spacecraft can provide energy support and stabilize the continuous operation of the space portal, so naturally there is no need for the Kree Corps to make fearless sacrifices. The Kree Corps lifted a defensive formation, and the remaining more than 40,000 single combat spacecraft, in cooperation with the Asgard warriors, began to launch a breakthrough attack on all sides. At the same time, other legions in the Celestial spacecraft also began to act. Hela's Undead Legion, Wakanda's Vibranium Legion, Kamar-Taj's Magician Legion, etc., all joined the battle. Although their number is not as large as that of the Kree Corps, their combat effectiveness is far greater than that of the Kree Corps. Therefore, the addition of these legions has a huge impact on the battlefield. Especially when the subsequent Kree Corps and Vanguard Corps motherships entered the dimensional space, the remaining Plunderer Corps followed closely. When all the forces were united, the power of the war that erupted was even greater. In this area near the dimensional space portal, lasers shuttled and flames burst almost everywhere. The number of dimensional monsters was huge, like locusts, coming in an endless stream and covering the sky. Relying on powerful firepower, the legions of the super god civilization burned all these dimensional monsters around the Celestial spacecraft and the portal. It is detected that several dimensional monsters with extremely high energy coefficients are approaching. Superheroes, get ready and go to various key positions on the battlefield for support at any time. Hela, Thanos, Thor, Carol, Strange, please quickly select the opponents you need to deal with. Further arrangements began to be made in the command hall. Superheroes like Iron Man, Quicksilver, Black Panther, etc., their responsibility is to rely on their own abilities to quickly fill the gaps when there are loopholes on the battlefield. As for the few who are specifically named, they all have the first-line combat power in the super god civilization, and their role is to play the role of turning the tide on the battlefield. As for Li Qingyun, he has only one combat opponent, that is, the master of this dimensional space, the god of the underworld, Zisson. As for the command, after Li Qingyun began to enter the transmission channel, it was completely handed over to the many commanders and dispatchers in the hall. Once the god of the underworld Zisson appears, Li Qingyun will need to go to fight him in person, and at that time he will not be able to put his energy back to continue commanding here. Therefore, Li Qingyun had arranged the communication and command personnel long before the war began. These people are all talents who are good at commanding and coordinating the overall situation selected from the Super God civilization, including former SHIELD agent Hill and Chen-Li of the Super God civilization. I've got my eyes on that octopus. Hela was the first to pick out the target she wanted to deal with. At this moment, she rode on her giant undead wolf, holding two swords, and rushed out of the celestial spaceship. After that, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel and others also selected their targets to fight. Thor, who had already led the Asgard Legion to join the battle, also handed over the command of the Legion to Sif, and rushed to his target with Storm Axe in hand. With the addition of these top combat forces, this war between the dimensional space and the real universe finally entered the climax stage. Almost all the time, dimensional monsters or warriors of the super god civilization die. The casualties are definitely overwhelmingly due to dimensional monsters. After all, these are pure beasts without thoughts. It's already this time, aren't you going to take action? Li Qingyun raised his head and looked upwards. Through the roof of the main hall of the celestial spaceship, he could see the strongest person in this dimensional space, the dimensional demon god who controlled everything, Hades god Zisson. I've been hiding at home and haven't done anything else to your super god civilization. Why do you have to press on step by step? The voice of Hades god Zisson came, and at this moment his tone was filled with resentment and anger. The last time he fought with Li Qingyun, He not only didn't get the slightest advantage, but in the end, half of his chaos magic was sucked away by Li Qingyun. In the past year or so, although he has tried his best to recover his strength, he still hasn't recovered until now. He thought that as long as he stayed in the dimensional space honestly and guarded his own little piece of land, he could always be at peace, but today Li Qingyun brought such a large army and forced his way in. This is really a fight to the death. Since you have already made a move, how can I not fight back? Li Qingyun said. He always does things this way. If someone doesn't offend me, I won't offend them. If someone offends me, I will kill them all. From the moment the Hades god Zisen tried to deal with Li Qingyun, it was destined that Li Qingyun would kill him all. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466, The Shock of the Heavenly Blade's Judgment. If I ask for peace, what conditions will you offer? The Hades god Zisen did not want to fight with Li Qingyun, at least he did not want to fight to the death with Li Qingyun now. Give me all your chaos magic energy, and this dimension will be ruled by my wife Wanda from now on. Li Qingyun did not directly refuse to negotiate. But his words were more infuriating than the words of going to war with the Hades god Zisen head-on. If you don't want me to ask for peace, we will fight to the death. The Hades god Zisen, have never been afraid of anyone for billions of years. The Hades god Zisen, an old god from ancient times. Since he developed chaos magic and completely ruled this dimensional space, he has become one of the most powerful beings in the universe. Even the five gods and the Life Tribunal, the gods with the highest power, although he cannot be their opponent, they can't easily attack him. This is the dimensional demon god. They were expelled from the real universe by the gods, but they also have the power to compete with the gods in this dimensional space. Of course, there is actually another group outside the universe. They are said to be more powerful than the dimensional demons. They are the Transcendents. But until now, the Transcendents have basically never appeared, and their threats are mostly just legends. But the dimensional demons really have a powerful force that can compete with the gods. In that case, let's continue. Li Qingyun had no intention of negotiating with the underworld god Zisen. This time he gathered a large army to come here. From the beginning, his purpose was to completely occupy this dimensional space and kill the underworld god Zisen. Only after killing the underworld god Zisen, Li Qingyun can let Wanda come and completely take over this chaotic dimension and become the new lord of the dimension here. Wanda became the lord of the dimension. The future successor may be Zhao King or Xiaoyan, but in any case, it is the power of their family, and it is a power that is not threatened or controlled by anyone. Continue. I'm not afraid of you, the underworld god Zisen said, and those dimensional monsters began to charge more frantically. They relied on their huge numbers to swarm in a crushing manner. Start the next battle plan. Li Qingyun turned his head to look at the commanders below the hall. Yes, everyone answered at the same time. Detect the area with the largest number of dimensional monsters. The Skyblade Judgment program has begun to start. Please sword holders take their positions, open the reserve energy and charge the Skyblade Judgment. The commander's instructions came out one after another, and then various staff members began to enter their designated areas. Sword holders take their positions. Gamora stood on a platform next to the hall, and a silver sword began to appear in front of her. Sword holders, holding the Sword of Judgment, launched the attacker. In the animation of the Super God Academy, when the Skyblade Judgment was launched, it was Xiaoyan who launched the attack. Because according to the procedure, it was carried out by the owner of the celestial spacecraft or the highest commander to show its majesty. But in this war, Li Qingyun didn't have the time to come out as a sword holder at this time. The super god civilization has developed to this level now, and a move like the Skyblade Judgment is no longer considered a powerful attack. After all, every one of the top 10 strong men can rely on themselves to launch attacks that are more powerful than the Skyblade Judgment and the Sky Punishment Bombing. Take Liu Qingyun for example, one of whose star-slashing axe is powerful enough to destroy a planet, and the Skyblade Judgment cannot do this at all under normal circumstances. Therefore, the Skyblade Judgment launched at this moment is arranged directly according to the habits of the superheroes and can be changed at any time according to needs. The Skyblade Judgment is ready, the attack area is locked, and the attack procedure begins. The commander's voice fell, and in the space outside, in a certain area outside the battlefield, a huge space gate suddenly opened. Inside the space gate, a huge golden longsword appeared in space, and then swung down quickly. In the area where the longsword passed, a large area of dimensional monsters were instantly destroyed, turning into dots of energy dust, and completely dissipated in space. Wow! Rocket Raccoon was driving a spaceship through space at this moment, and suddenly saw this scene, and was shocked and screamed. "Is this the attack of the sword holder?" Star-Lord asked in surprise. "If I had known that the sword holder was doing this, I would have definitely argued with Gamora. It's just swinging a sword anyway, I can do it too," Rocket Raccoon said with a regretful tone. "Forget it. Your small body is not even as tall as the hilt, how can you swing a sword?" Nebula complained, but she was a little annoyed now, because she also wanted to be a sword holder. The first strike of the Skyblade Judgment went smoothly. The celestial spacecraft has sufficient energy and can launch a double strike at the same time. In the hull of the celestial spacecraft, the commander began to mobilize again. The Super God No. 1 computing system has begun to make arrangements, and all technicians are ready for technical mobilization. Energy mobilization begins, and the second reserved platform is deployed. As the commander's voice fell, on the other side of the hall, a platform similar to the area where Gamora was located began to unfold. "Please take the position of the second sword holder," the commander's voice came out, and all the superheroes who heard this were all excited. "Let me do it." More than a dozen voices came back through the communication system almost at the same time. There are the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy who just spoke, as well as Iron Man, Captain America, Ant-Man II, and so on. The information shows that the person with the closest position and the most suitable dispatching conditions is Sif. "Please Sif, go to the 11 o'clock direction. We will open a wormhole for you so that you can return to Super God 1 in the shortest time." The voice of the commander came out, and a large group of people sighed with regret after hearing it. When Sif heard this, she shouted excitedly, "Woohoo!" Riding on Pegasus, through the space wormhole, she returned to Super God 1 in just a dozen seconds, and quickly entered the command hall at the fastest speed and went to the No. 2 sword holder platform. When she picked up the Silver Sky Blade, she looked at Gamora on the other side. The two raised their long swords in tacit understanding, which was regarded as a salute to each other. The position suitable for launching the Skyblade Judgment has been calculated. "Start the second Skyblade Judgment strike in 5 seconds, the voice of the commander came out, and Sif and Gamora immediately regained their serious expressions, holding the hilts of their swords with both hands at the same time, ready to attack. Chapter 467 How many dimensional monsters do you have left? In the space of the dimensional space, on the left and right sides of the battlefield, 2 huge space gates opened at the same time, and 2 golden long swords were swung quickly. Wherever the long sword passed, it was crushed. Countless dimensional monsters turned into ashes under this attack, and more dimensional monsters suddenly slowed down their original charging speed after seeing such an attack. "Damn it!" the voice of the Hades god Zissing echoed in the dimensional space. After hearing it, everyone could clearly feel how angry this dimensional master of the chaotic space was. "Why, you can't stand it just like this." Li Qingyun smiled as he listened to the roar of the Hades god Zissing. He was fully prepared for this war. Although it was only a celestial spaceship, the energy stored in this celestial spaceship was extremely full. Moreover, the combat system of the entire celestial spaceship has been upgraded. Its functionality is better than the Skyblade series of the former Super God universe, and its combat performance is also more outstanding. It was built by the heavenly base King Hexi himself, and the most advanced technology of all the Super God universes in the Big Clock provided reference. Even Li Qingyun and the God of Death Karl had participated in the guidance. How could the ability of this celestial spacecraft be bad? "I don't believe that you can continue to use such attacks without restraint," the Hades god Zissing said stubbornly. However, the attacks of those dimensional monsters began to weaken obviously. Although their number seemed to be countless, the overwhelming and dense charge like before disappeared. They began to keep a certain distance and reduce the number of one-time charges to avoid being hit hard by the Skyblade Judgment as before. Moreover, the dimensional monsters began to get as close to the warriors of the Super God civilization as possible. The attack power of the Skyblade Judgment is powerful, and their attack range is very wide, which can cause huge losses to the dimensional monsters. But such a large-scale attack will also cause another trouble, that is, such an attack cannot be avoided by one's own people. because it directly attacks all targets in a designated area. If the people of the super god civilization also enter it, they will naturally be eliminated together. Li Qingyun would definitely not sacrifice his own people at will. Even if he was willing to do so, the result would definitely lead to the disintegration of the morale of the entire team. After all, if even his own people were to take action, who would be willing to fight for you? The other side has made tactical adjustments. The use of the Skyblade Judgment consumes too much energy and has little effect. Terminate the Skyblade Judgment strike plan and start the wormhole sniper tactics. All snipers enter their respective combat positions, and the energy of Super God number 1 is transferred to the wormhole system of the Devil Wings. The dimensional monsters of the Hades Zisson began to change their tactics, and the combat arrangements in the celestial spacecraft would naturally change accordingly. Changing combat plans according to the situation is a skill that commanders on the battlefield must have. This large group of commanders specially selected by Li Qingyun from the many life planets of the super god civilization naturally understand this truth. Finally, it's my turn to take action. Hawkeye Barton's voice spread throughout the communication system, and everyone who knew him smiled and shook his head. This is obviously a huge war between two universes, but they seem to be very relaxed from the beginning to now. This is the feeling of leaning on a big tree. With Li Qingyun in charge, and a large celestial spacecraft like Chaoshan number 1 coordinating everything in the middle, all of them only need to appear in their respective suitable positions to fight according to their own abilities. I have never fought such a smooth battle in my life, Captain America sighed. Calm down, Stark's voice came. He was wearing an iron suit and shuttled through the battlefield. This suit of armor made of super strong metals, such as dark alloy and dark silver, made him feel relaxed when he was on the battlefield. Focus, the first wave of attack will begin immediately, Agent Hill's voice came, and all the commanders in the command system immediately began to make overall arrangements. Yes, Hawkeye Barton agreed, and then he retracted his attention and clenched a bow and arrow in his hands at the same time. Although he still used a bow and arrow, this time he used the arrow of killing the gods. The spring of archers and snipers is coming. Energy allocation completed, wormhole algorithm in place, attack target locked, attack started. As the last 4 words fell, all snipers began to attack at the same time, and red lights suddenly appeared on the battlefield. Hundreds of bullets and arrows flew out in the first round, and thousands of dimensional monsters were shot through the vital parts in an instant. Although the number of casualties was much different from that of the Skyblade Judgment, this kind of attack also has a special effect, that is, they attack all the relatively powerful dimensional monsters. Moreover, they will give priority to attacking those dimensional monsters that may pose a threat to the frontline soldiers, which can quickly reduce the casualties of the frontline combatants and reduce the burden of all soldiers at the first time. Zisson, how many dimensional monsters do you have? Li Qingyun looked up and looked at the distant starry sky. My dimensional monsters are countless. The voice of the Hades Zisson came across the space again. Really? But how come I see that your number has at least been reduced by half? Although Li Qingyun has been sitting on the throne, he has already been looking through space to investigate the situation in the entire dimensional universe. Although he has not seen all areas of the entire dimensional universe yet, on such a battlefield, these dimensional monsters cannot be too far away. And within the light-year range observed by Li Qingyun, the number of all dimensional monsters added up is less than half of the initial number. Your people are not even half of the initial number, said the Hades god Sithon. Is this considered self-paralysis? Li Qingyun smiled. Although he did lose a lot of troops, the biggest losses were still the Leviathan and the Vanguard, and the rest were the Kree Legion. But in this war, it was not these 2 legions that really dominated everything, but the elite legions with not many people, such as the Asgard Legion and Hela's Undead Legion. In addition, although the number of Kree Legion's combat troops dropped from 70,000 to 30,000, the actual death toll was only more than 20,000. Because Chaoshan No. 1 has been carrying out rescue work. When the single-body spacecraft is destroyed, the pilots will immediately send it back to the mothership through the wormhole. As for those who were not rescued in time, although Li Qingyun felt sorry for them, it was impossible to avoid death in such a war. Chapter 468 Dormammu is unreliable. By the way, you should have been thinking that when these dimensional monsters are destroyed, the energy in their bodies will return to the dimensional universe and be absorbed by you again, right? Li Qingyun seemed to suddenly remember something. How could you? Hearing Li Qingyun's words, the tone of Hades god Zisson showed panic for the first time. Did you notice that about half of the energy you recovered disappeared inexplicably? Li Qingyun asked, and after hearing Li Qingyun's words, Hades God Zison's energy obviously fluctuated a little. It was not until this time that Hades God Zison finally understood why Li Qingyun was completely unaware of his plan and still allowed his army to fight the dimensional monsters as usual. It turned out that while he was waiting for these dimensional monsters to consume the military power of the super god civilization and replenish their own energy, Li Qingyun was also constantly eroding the energy of his dimensional space. At the beginning, I really didn't notice this, but when the Skyblade Judgment launched its first attack, I already understood it, Li Qingyun said. At that moment, the number of dimensional monsters killed or injured by the attack of the Skyblade Judgment was extremely large. The moment these many dimensional monsters died, I sensed that the energy in the entire dimensional space had fluctuated. It was at that moment that I figured out your plan. However, instead of interrupting your plan, I would rather share the energy of these dimensional monsters with you in this process. Li Qingyun's move was called playing the game against the enemy. Since the Hades God Zison wanted to obtain the energy originally existing in the bodies of these dimensional monsters in this way, then Li Qingyun could naturally guide the energy released after these dimensional monsters were destroyed into his body. Because the Hades God Zison used chaos magic, but Li Qingyun also had the energy of chaos magic in his body. Damn it, the Hades God Zison felt that he was severely humiliated at this moment. He thought that everything was under his control, but it turned out that the other party was controlling everything on the battlefield. He thought that he could use countless dimensional monsters to consume Li Qingyun's troops, and he would be able to get a lot of chaos magic energy to replenish it. However, countless chaos monsters were consumed, and his power was directly divided by half by Li Qingyun. Even if I have to fight to the death today, I must kill you. As the Hades Zison spoke, an extremely huge amount of chaos magic energy began to gather in space. This was the beginning of the Hades Zison's own attack, and this time he was unreserved and used all his strength. In this chaotic dimension, all chaos magic is his power, and he can control all the energy in this space. As the Lord of the Dimension, this is the supreme authority he has in this dimensional space. Everyone, shrink the defense line and retreat to the vicinity of Super God number 1, Li Qingyun's voice came out, and all the people fighting in the front quickly retreated after hearing Li Qingyun's voice. At the same time, Li Qingyun had already walked out of the celestial spacecraft. He stood in the air, and wherever he looked, he was the body of the Hades Zison. There, an extremely huge body gradually emerged. It was a huge ancient creature with a body similar to that of a human. But its eyes were red, and a layer of scarlet energy always lingered on its body. Li Qingyun, in the real universe, my power cannot be fully exerted. I may not be your opponent, but here, I am the supreme god. After the Hades God Zison finished speaking, he pointed his right hand directly at Li Qingyun, and a red beam of light shot out from his hand. Li Qingyun raised his left hand, and a wave of invisible energy formed a defensive barrier in front of him, completely blocking the beam of light. This scene looked very ordinary, but almost at the moment when the energy of the two people collided, all the people and dimensional monsters not far away were all shaken and flew back by a powerful shock wave. Is it just a random first collision that produces such a terrifying power? Not far away, Iron Man, who was also forced to retreat dozens of kilometers away by the energy fluctuations, couldn't help but sigh. These two are the top existences in the universe. The battle between them is even more intense than when we fought Dormammu on Earth. Doctor Strange was also watching this side. He was originally dealing with an octopus dimension monster, but now he had tied up the other party with magic. Dormammu? Isn't Dormammu in the same group with the god of the underworld, Sithin? How come we have been fighting for so long, but the Dark Lord has never appeared? Iron Man suddenly remembered the Dark Lord Dormammu, who had joined forces with the god of the underworld, Sithin, to attack the super god civilization. The Supreme Sorcerer said that Dormammu is definitely not someone who can easily join forces with others. After the last incident, I am afraid that the cooperation relationship between him and the god of the underworld, Sithin, has been dissolved. Doctor Strange has been following the Ancient One to learn magic. Now that he can stand on his own, he still respects the Ancient One very much. He still remembers what the Ancient One said. That being said, anyone with a little bit of brains should know that since we can attack the chaos dimension of the god of hell Zithorn, we will naturally attack his dark dimension. If we don't help Zithorn at this time, he will be the next to die after Zithorn is dealt with. Iron Man said so, And many people in the same communication channel at this moment have actually realized this problem. Dormammu, as the Lord of the Dark Dimension, must understand such a simple truth that the lips and teeth are cold. If he understood it, how could he be completely indifferent at this time? Li Qingyun, who easily blocked the attack of the god of hell Zithorn, naturally knew it. Zithorn, what did you and that guy Dormammu plan behind the scenes? Li Qingyun asked tentatively. Dormammu? This bastard can't be relied on at all. When the god of hell Zithorn heard Dormammu mentioned, the expression on his face was full of disgust. They had agreed to fight against the super god civilization together, but he led Li Qingyun away, and Dormammu's action still failed. Not only did a large number of dimensional monsters die in the battle to invade the Earth, but Li Qingyun also took away half of the power of the underworld god Sithin during the battle with Li Qingyun. This time, they should have joined forces to deal with Li Qingyun's counterattack, but Dormammu failed again. Chapter 469 The Strongest Battle. So, you are completely isolated and helpless, Li Qingyun said, and the heavenly sword appeared in his hand. After Li Qingyun came back from the Super God universe, he rarely used so-called weapons when fighting with others. Because at their level, the role of weapons has been negligible and can't play any role at all. But this time facing the Hades god Zithorn, he still took out the heavenly sword. Use a sword? What's the point of such a thing in a battle at our level? When the Hades god Zithorn saw Li Qingyun take out the heavenly sword, he also looked down on it. Whether it is meaningful or not, you will know later. Li Qingyun didn't care about the ridicule of the Hades god Zithorn. Wait, while the Hades god Zithorn was speaking, he raised both hands above his head at the same time, and the red energy began to gather rapidly, and an extremely huge red energy sword quickly took shape. Since you want to use weapons, I will also use weapons. I wonder if your sword made of scrap copper and rotten iron can block my attack. After the Hades god Zithorn finished speaking, he swung his hands forward fiercely, and the huge red energy sword chopped down from top to bottom at an extremely fast speed. Li Qingyun looked at the long sword that fell quickly, and then looked back at the celestial spaceship and many spaceships not far behind him. The sword of Hades god Zithorn was directly aimed at Li Qingyun, but if this sword fell, Li Qingyun would not block it, and this sword would fall on the celestial spaceship. Li Qingyun could sense the power of this sword. If this sword really fell on the celestial spaceship, it would definitely split the celestial spaceship in half in an instant, even if there was a space-time barrier outside the celestial spaceship to protect it. Because this red energy giant sword was completely condensed by chaos magic itself has the power to subvert the rules of the universe, and the defense shield formed by the power of time and space will naturally fail in front of it. A great sword condensed from chaos magic? I can do that too, Li Qingyun said, and the moment he raised the Shiansha sword in his hand, a huge red energy also began to spread rapidly with the Shiansha sword as the center. A long sword of the same size as the long sword slashed by the Hades god Zithorn slashed up to meet the energy sword of the Hades god Zithorn. The two huge energy swords collided in space, and a more powerful shock wave erupted at this moment. The entire dimensional space was shaking violently at this moment, and some fragile planets were directly destroyed in this vibration. Everyone, retreat to Chaocean number 1 and your respective motherships. All time and space barriers are activated, and the second level void barrier is ready. Once the time and space barrier fails, directly activate the void barrier for self-protection. In Chaocean number 1, all the commanders were mobilizing the energy of the spacecraft at the fastest speed. Some soldiers who were scattered outside and had no spacecraft protection were pulled back from space by them at the fastest speed. However, no matter how fast they were, there were still some people who could not dodge in time. At least 1,000 warriors were severely injured by the shock wave, and more than half of them vomited blood and died because they could not bear it. The Vanguard and Leviathan were even more miserable. They had already suffered heavy casualties in the first battle, and this wave of impact killed all of them. The loss of the dimensional monsters was even greater than that of the Legion of the Super God civilization. After this impact, the originally densely packed dimensional monsters were less than half of the original ones. Although the remaining ones were relatively powerful, such a battle loss still made these dimensional monsters panic. They almost immediately began to flee in all directions after the shock wave broke out. The battle between the two strongest people, even if it is just the aftermath of the battle, is unbearable for ordinary people. Hela, who had retreated to a distance, said so. At this moment, there were only a few people left in space. For example, Hela, Thor, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange and Thanos, and some superheroes who are relatively powerful or have special defense methods, such as Hulk and Iron Man. Be careful, there are still many dimensional monsters that can move in space. Those of us who stay outside must be alert to their sudden attacks at any time. Thanos' voice came through the communication system. This once famous cosmic overlord has now become a most stable general after becoming Li Qingyun's subordinate. At this moment, when everyone was sighing at how terrifying the battle between Li Qingyun and the god of the underworld, Zisson, he was the only one who was still on guard against the situation of those dimensional monsters. Don't worry, they have no chance to attack. Doctor Strange's eyes were locked on the octopus-like dimensional monster in front of him. It was clearly tied up by him with magic not long ago, but now it has broken free from Doctor Strange's restraints again. However, it has been suppressed by Doctor Strange. Now even if it breaks free, it still can't do anything to Doctor Strange. After the direct battle between Li Qingyun and the god of the underworld, the two of them maintained a calm confrontation. That is, no one took action, nor did they want to escape, but just waited quietly, waiting for the result of the battle on the other side. The situation faced by Hela, Thor and others was not much different from that of Doctor Strange. Although there were more than a dozen superheroes and dimensional monsters left, both sides chose to watch quietly. Boom! A violent explosion sounded, and the red energy spread instantly, filling the entire dimensional space. All the spaceships showed defensive means such as starlight barriers and space-time barriers. Those powerful people who stayed in space also made defensive moves. This huge energy was produced after the two huge red energy swords collided and disintegrated. They were full of violent breath, and ordinary life would be wiped out as long as they entered them. Come again. As Li Qingyun spoke, he waved the Xianxia sword in his hand again, and a golden energy burst out from the long sword and attacked the god of the underworld, Zisson. The energy of chaos magic of the Hades god Zisson is comparable to that of Li Qingyun, but Li Qingyun has many other energies besides chaos magic. The reason why Li Qingyun is called the god of chaos is not because he possesses chaos magic, but because he himself is a strong man formed by the gathering of multiple energies. Chaos refers to his own energy state. Chapter 470 You're doomed to lose. Facing another attack from Li Qingyun after he had just fought an equally powerful attack with him, Hades god Zisson had to hurriedly mobilize his own chaotic magic energy to form a defensive barrier around his body. At the same time, he was also escaping at the fastest speed. The defensive barrier he hastily condensed was only a basic protection for himself, and he did not dare to rely on it to take Li Qingyun's attack. Hide? Can you be as fast as me? Li Qingyun took a step forward, and his body instantly traveled hundreds of kilometers and directly arrived behind Hades god Zisson. The heavenly blade sword chopped down directly, and Hades god Zisson's outer layer of defense shield was directly shattered the moment it touched the heavenly blade sword. Feeling the cold light, Hades god Zisson had to quickly turn around and block his hands in front of him to forcibly block Li Qingyun's sword. The heavenly blade sword collided with Hades god Zisson's arms, and the sound of fine iron rang out instantly. Your sword isn't that good. Seeing that he had successfully blocked Li Qingyun's sword, Hades Zisson immediately mocked him triumphantly. As expected of the Lord of Dimensions, this body is the strongest I've ever encountered. This was the first time Li Qingyun had encountered an opponent that even the Skyxia sword made of dark silver could not cut. After millions of years of tempering, my body has long been indestructible, Hades Zisson said confidently. Really? As Li Qingyun spoke, a burst of purple energy instantly spread to the sword body, and he grabbed the hilt with his right hand and pulled it hard. The long sword slashed in the direction of Li Qingyun's slashing, and where the blade passed, it actually directly slashed a bright red blood mark on Hades Zisson's arms. Hades Zisson, who had just claimed to be indestructible, was so easily broken by Li Qingyun. Hades Zisson quickly retreated, keeping a distance from Li Qingyun. He lowered his head and looked at the wound on his arm that had just been cut by the sword of heavenly destruction, with a shocked expression. You use the energy of chaos magic to constantly temper your body. Can't I use my energy to strengthen the destructive power of the sword of heavenly destruction? Li Qingyun said, and the purple energy on his sword was still condensing. If it's just a comparison of strength, my strength is much stronger than yours. Li Qingyun's words were not just casually said, but an accurate conclusion he came to after the collision just now. Li Qingyun's chaos magic energy is no less than that of the Hades god Zisson, plus he also has the energy of ether in his body, as well as the various energies of the void, anti-void, dark energy and light energy as a super soldier. After Li Qingyun dispatched all the chaos magic energy to fight against the Hades god Zizan, he was able to condense other strong attacks in a flash to launch an attack. This is the reason. No, this is my home ground. I am the lord of this chaotic dimension. No one can defeat me here. As the Hades god Zizan spoke, red energy flashed on his arm, and the wound that had just been cut quickly recovered. If it were other dimensional demon gods, I might really be afraid of them in their dimensional space, but here, I really don't need to be afraid at all. After Li Qingyun finished speaking, he swung the heavenly sword in his hand again. After the attack just now, the Hades god Zizan dared not to take Li Qingyun's attack. The moment he saw Li Qingyun swinging his sword, he immediately began to retreat. While swinging his hands, he summoned the chaotic magic energy in the surrounding space and condensed it into a shield to block Li Qingyun's attack. At the same time, his other hand grabbed the ball of red energy and threw it in the direction of Li Qingyun. What was thrown out was just a fist-sized red energy ball, but the moment it was thrown out, it continued to attract countless red energies behind it, gradually condensing into an extremely huge chaotic magic. The Hades god Zizan used chaos magic, so Li Qingyun naturally used chaos magic as well. His left hand pushed out in the form of a palm, and the red energy also condensed on his palm, hitting the magic ball shot by the Hades god Zizan. The two identical energies collided with each other, and the powerful energy impact exploded again as before. There was no way to tell the winner between two people with equal power in chaos magic. Although originally in terms of quantity, Li Qingyun's energy was stronger than that of the Hades god Zizan, because he absorbed half of the energy of the Hades god Zizan at the beginning, and extracted half from the bodies of those chaos monsters after entering the dimensional space. In addition to the chaos magic that Li Qingyun himself possessed, Li Qingyun had already surpassed the Hades god Zizan in terms of pure chaos magic energy. But this is the chaos dimension after all. As the lord of the dimension of this dimension, the Hades god Zizan has the advantage of home court, so the power he exploded is always comparable to that of Li Qingyun. In this situation, the two sides fought many times, and the results were evenly matched, and neither could do anything to the other. The impact of chaos magic is evenly matched between you and me, so in this battle between us, the final winner will definitely be me, Li Qingyun said, and the heavenly sword in his right hand had stabbed out again. The Hades god Zizan only used chaos magic, and Li Qingyun, in addition to chaos magic itself, other various energies were the key to breaking the balance. Asshole, the Hades god Zizan looked at the long sword stabbed by Li Qingyun and had to retreat quickly, trying to avoid Li Qingyun's attack in this way. But Li Qingyun no longer wanted to waste time entangled with the Hades god Zizan, so his attack was naturally more fierce than before, and the speed of his attack was also faster. The Hades god Zizan dodged in a hurry, and although he avoided the vital parts of his body, the heavenly sword still stabbed his body and penetrated directly from his shoulder. The purple energy of the Xianxia sword generated a huge attack power. The moment the Hades god Zizan was pierced by the long sword, he felt that his whole body was burning violently, and a large amount of energy was being consumed continuously. However, the current situation did not allow him to hesitate at all. Even if it was painful, he had to endure it and quickly move to another position. He retreated, out of Li Qingyun's attack range, and retreated thousands of meters away. The energy in his body was constantly urging him to quickly recover from his physical injuries and return to normal. Chapter 471, Death of the Hades god Zizan. If you want to recover from your injuries, I'm afraid it's too late for you. As Li Qingyun spoke, his body moved quickly. Since he had already decided to kill the god of the underworld, Zizan, then killing him earlier would avoid more trouble later. After all, in such a battle, in a chaotic world like Marvel, it is easy for some unexpected things to happen. For example, Dormammu suddenly appeared, or other dimensional demons or cosmic gods took action. In short, the sooner the better, so as to avoid more trouble. Don't push me too much. Zizan, the god of the underworld, retreated quickly. While recovering from his injuries, he gathered the countless chaos magic scattered around him towards Li Qingyun. In the face of his actions, Li Qingyun simply used his own chaos magic to contain him, and then continued to hold the sword of Xianxia and chased Zizan, the god of the underworld, at the fastest speed. I'm going to kill you. What's the point of pushing you too far? Li Qingyun said, waving his left index finger and middle finger, and countless silver flying knives appeared around Li Qingyun. Silver blade, Inside the celestial spaceship, many technicians from the Super God Academy were all excited when they saw this scene. After they joined the Super God Academy, they naturally learned about the Super God universe through the systems in the Super God Academy. And in the Super God Academy system, it was introduced that the Silver Blade was a weapon used by the most powerful king of gods in the Super God universe, Holy Kisha. They can easily penetrate the body of the gods, can directly solve the calculations in the enemy's body, and destroy the body from the inside to kill the enemy. Although the style of the silver wings used by Li Qingyun now is different from Kisha's, it is undoubtedly a silver blade made of dark silver. Activate the Void enchantment, attach the Void energy to all the silver blades to bless their attack power. Li Qingyun's mind was driven, and a burst of purple energy began to quickly cover the silver blades, strengthening the overall power of the silver blades. After these void forces were integrated into it, they flew towards the location of the Hades god's zone. The power of Hades god's zone was very strong, and his body defense was also extremely strong, but when it came to flexibility in battle, he was not even as good as any of the angels who came from the Super God universe with Li Qingyun. Now, under the control of Li Qingyun, these silver blades continuously attacked Hades god's zone from different directions. No matter how much he dodged, he still couldn't dodge. The silver blades kept cutting him, and wounds appeared one after another. Although Hades god's zone's body healing power was very strong, these silver blades were god-killing weapons, and they themselves had the ability to destroy human genes. Now that the void energy was attached, the destructive power was even stronger than before. Therefore, Hades god's zone's healing power simply couldn't instantly restore these cut wounds. And with each additional wound, the burden that Hades god's zone had to bear would be heavier. The severe pain and the loss of energy from the wound made it impossible for him to concentrate on controlling the chaos magic to launch another attack on Li Qingyun. You can't move, but I can call on energy at any time to completely destroy you, as Li Qingyun spoke. The red energy behind him began to be constantly mobilized, forming a huge projection behind him, a huge projection of the demon god. I am the dimensional demon god of this dimension. How can you use my power to deal with me? The Hades god Zisson roared hysterically, but at this time, no matter how much he said, it was just an incompetent roar, and it had no effect on the result at all. Your doomsday has come. As Li Qingyun spoke, the shadow of the demon god behind him gradually took shape, turning into a huge and ferocious monster. In the hands of this monster, there was an extremely huge red battle axe. The light emanating from the blade of the axe made it easy to see at a glance that it was sharp and contained infinite destructive power. The demon god held the axe handle with both hands at the same time, and then swung it violently. This huge battle axe drew a huge arc in this dimensional space, slashing towards the Hades god Zithan. Ho ha ho ha, ho ha ho ha. Suddenly, the Hades god Zithan began to laugh wildly, a crazy, unbridled laugh. It's already this time, and you can still laugh. Li Qingyun looked at the current state of the Hades god Zithan and felt a little weird. Why was he still angry before, but now he was about to die? He suddenly laughed wildly. Once the dimensional space loses its owner, it will be completely blocked in a short period of time until the new owner completely conquers it. What did you say? Li Qingyun frowned. He suddenly realized what the Hades god Zithan was laughing at, and he finally understood why Dormammu had not taken any action so far. With your ability, it is not difficult to become the master of this dimensional space, but even if you are powerful, it will take at least several days or even longer to do it. During this time, without your protection, how can your universe contend with a powerful dimensional demon? While the Hades god Zisson was speaking, the huge red battle axe had already fallen, less than 100 meters away from the Hades god Zisson's body. Damn it, Li Qingyun understood everything, and he quickly took action to retract his attack. But this blow was made by him concentrating all the chaotic magic energy. When this huge demon shadow made this blow, the power was so great that it could not be easily retracted. What's more, it only took a dozen seconds for it to cross the starry sky and cross a distance of tens of kilometers. Now it is only 100 meters away from the Hades god Zisson, and it only took 1 or 2 seconds to fall. How could he stop in 1 or 2 seconds? This blow finally fell on the Hades god Zisson, and the extremely powerful energy burst out instantly, and the Hades god Zisson's body was completely shattered. Almost at the moment when Hades Zithorn was killed, the huge space portal that had been maintained by the energy of the celestial spacecraft was directly closed by an extremely powerful space force. Their connection with the outside world was completely cut off. Just as Hades Zithorn said, this dimensional space has been completely blocked, and no one can open it before a new owner appears. Chapter 472 The Locked Dimensional Space. The god of the underworld, Zizan, died, and the power of this chaotic dimension returned to the dimensional space at this moment. But at the same time, the entire chaotic dimension space was completely blocked, and all connections with the outside world were cut off. Even the small world and Li Qingyun's soul gem could no longer maintain contact with the outside world at this moment. Damn it, Dormammu is actually thinking of such an idea. Li Qingyun felt that he was being tricked. After having the big clock, as a traverser, he had never encountered such a situation. But this time he really miscalculated. Not only could the big clock not calculate such a result, but even Li Qingyun didn't know that there was such a situation in the dimensional space. Lord Shen, all our connections with the Super God Academy have been cut off. In Super God number 1, the commander reported this information. The space of the chaotic dimension has been completely blocked. Not only can the communication not be transmitted, but even my space transmission cannot be used. Li Qingyun returned to the celestial spaceship, and everyone else outside also returned. As for the dimensional monsters that were still confronting them, after seeing the Hades god Zizan being killed by Li Qingyun, they all fled. The last burst of laughter of the Hades god Zizan, what he said at least proved that Dormammu must have participated in all this behind the scenes. At this moment, Dormammu may have officially launched an attack on the real universe, Li Qingyun said, and everyone who heard his words was worried at this moment. Dark Lord Dormammu, this is a dimensional demon of the same level as Hades god Zizan, and his power is even stronger than Hades god Zizan. Because when Li Qingyun fought with Hades god Zizan, he once took action to absorb half of his chaos magic into his body, but Dark Lord Dormammu did not have this situation. We made special arrangements before the expedition. With so many strong people staying in the Super God civilization, we should be able to deal with all this, right? Captain Marvel asked. Now she understood why Li Qingyun had to keep all the super soldiers in the Super God civilization when he arranged the troops to split into 2 groups. This was to prevent such a situation from happening. If the teams of both sides were exchanged when they went out, and they were the ones who stayed in the Super God civilization, would they really be able to deal with a dimensional demon? I hope so. Li Qingyun didn't know whether this was really safe. He was different from superheroes like Captain Marvel. The destruction of a Marvel universe was not a serious matter for Li Qingyun. What he really cared about were only his family members. His wife and his good brothers were what he cared about the most. If possible, he would like to let all those people come with him, instead of staying there like now. At this moment, in this celestial spaceship, the only person who could understand Li Qingyun's thoughts the most was probably Hela. Now, Hela came to Li Qingyun's side, and the two were very close. It's useless to worry so much. The key now is to quickly control the entire dimensional space and let me become the real master of the dimension. Only in this way can we open the blockade of the dimensional space again and return to the real universe. Li Qingyun stretched out his hands and gently patted Hela's hands, then said, "Well, I believe you can do it in time," Hela said in an extremely affirmative tone. "You coordinate and command here, and you need to investigate the situation of the entire dimensional space. The more intelligence information you have, the faster I can control this dimensional space," Li Qingyun said. "Yes, I will lead the army to various areas of the dimensional space." After Hela finished speaking, she immediately walked down. All the other superheroes understood how important this matter was to them, and they all started to act. For safety, their dispersed teams will be equipped with a first-line strongman or a group of superheroes. After all, there are at least a few dimensional monsters in the current dimensional space that can compete with Hela and others. As for Li Qingyun, he stayed in the spaceship. Li Qingyun released all the chaos magic in his body to communicate with the chaotic energy in this dimensional space and combine it with his own energy. He was trying to become the dimensional master of this dimensional space. At the same time, in the Super God civilization in the real universe, everyone in the floating city on Earth had gathered together. We just lost all contact with the frontline combat troops, and the space portal was forcibly closed. Angel Yan seemed very anxious at this time, not because she was anxious because the 2 channels she mentioned could not contact Li Qingyun, but because she could not use the communication channel that she secretly controlled to directly connect to Li Qingyun's microcosm. In the past, even if something happened to Li Qingyun, Even if he went to other multiverses, he could establish contact through the special space of the microcosm. But this time, even this means of communication failed. All of this showed a truth, that is, the problem encountered this time was unprecedented. I have notified Carl and Hezai and they will come over soon. We will discuss the specific situation together at that time, Sun Wukong said. He knew that Angel Yan would be anxious at this moment, and Sun Wukong himself was actually anxious too. But at this time, they couldn't panic. They had to ensure that the situation here was stable first, and that there would be no critical situation in the real universe and the super god civilization. Swish. Several shuttle sounds were heard, and Carl, Hezai, and Morgana appeared one after another. Outside the hall, Wanda, Killin and others were also coming here. The communication link with the big clock was completely interrupted. This kind of thing was really unprecedented for them, so each of them had to pay attention to it. Let's talk about the most reasonable analysis result of the current situation first. Sun Wukong looked at the god of death Carl. He knew that at this time, only this guy must be the most patient, and only he could accurately analyze all the detailed information. From the last information sent back by Super God number 1, we can see that the Lord of the River God has already gained an absolute upper hand in this battle, so the problem this time should not be on their side, but on our side, the god of death Carl said, and his words made everyone present react instantly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, The Reaction Speed of Super Divine Civilization. With Li Qingyun's powerful strength, even the 5 great gods couldn't do anything to him, and how could a mere Hades god Zisson be his opponent? Therefore, now that the space is blocked and the communication is cut off, if there is any danger, it must be on their side. I can sense that my chaos magic has become extremely pure in the moment before the dimension space was blocked. This should be Qingyun has won and killed Hades god Zisson. Wanda also recalled at this time, the wonderful state she felt at that moment. It seems that the dimension space will fall into a block state after its original dimensional master is killed, and the way to reopen it should be that a new person will inherit it. Death God Carl speculated so. The others present were also smart people. When Death God Carl said this guess, he immediately understood what the situation was. It should be like this. Sun Wukong nodded, and Angel Yan and others heard this, and their frowns were slightly relaxed. As long as Li Qingyun is not safe, other things are not a big deal. With the ability of the Lord of Shen, it is not difficult to regain control of the dimensional space, but this process will surely consume a lot of time, the god of death Carl continued. The biggest problem now is that before the Lord of Shen returns, I am afraid that the Dark Lord Dormammu will take action on our universe. The god of death Carl's thinking ability is too strong. He is a guy who can calculate the entire Super God universe clearly. Although he is no longer the final boss in the Super God universe, he is still the god of death Carl, so he can find accurate ideas and answers for such things just by thinking casually. Qingyun's previous arrangements should be to prevent this situation from happening, Xianji King Hexi said. Let all the other 8 celestial computers except the big clock stay in the real universe, and let the people responsible for controlling these 8 celestial computers stay. Now the 7 of us can use these 8 celestial computers to complete the control of the entire universe, Xianji King Hexi said, and everyone around nodded. Before Lao Li comes back, the super god civilization must not be destroyed in any case, Sun Wukong said. Start all celestial computers and expand the monitoring range to the entire universe as much as possible, and monitor any abnormal movements that may occur at any time. Send a message to Shishi, and have all Shen mechas dispersed to all life planets of the super god civilization. At the same time, mobilize all local warriors of the super god civilization to enter a state of preparation for war. All students of the Super God Academy, return to Earth and station at the headquarters of the Super God Academy in case of emergency. Sun Wukong directly issued 3 orders, one for those who had celestial computers, Shishi who commanded the Shen mechas, and the members of the Super God Academy scattered outside. Although Sun Wukong's status may not be the highest among these people, as the temporary person in charge of the Super God civilization, he is definitely the most qualified to issue orders. Moreover, in the absence of Li Qingyun, if multiple people's orders are transmitted at the same time, All people in the super god civilization will give priority to Sun Wukong's orders. Because this was directly authorized by Li Qingyun when he made Sun Wukong the temporary person in charge of the super god civilization. Moreover, Sun Wukong has been responsible for this responsibility for some years. Therefore, as Sun Wukong's orders were passed on, the entire super god civilization immediately began to mobilize. Although Li Qingyun had previously drawn 100,000 elite troops to go to the Chaos Dimension together, with the Shenmetsja army and many super soldiers such as Sun Wukong, the combat effectiveness of the super god civilization is still strong. The most important thing is that the 8 celestial computer systems are running at the same time, and their monitoring range can cover the vast universe. They can quickly locate various abnormal situations in the universe. Finally, after 3 hours, their celestial computer joint program detected an abnormal coordinate point in the universe. In that coordinate point, there is an extremely huge amount of energy constantly gushing out, and this energy does not quickly spread into the universe after it gushed out, but instead condenses together and gradually becomes more concentrated. With such high-intensity energy, there must be an important situation at this point, Angel Yan said. I will immediately organize people to go to that location. After Sun Wukong finished speaking, he wanted to go to the square in person to lead many soldiers to attack. But when he was halfway there, his eye blocked him. We are still unsure whether the other party is using a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain, so we can't send everyone out at once, his eye said. This, Sun Wukong hesitated. Divide the team into 3 teams, 2 teams will be ready to move at any time, and the last team will stay on Earth as a reserve team, his eye gave his opinion directly. Yan, you lead all the angels to follow me, we will be the first team, his eye said, but after she said this, she looked at Morgana again. Okay, I know what you mean, don't you just want me to go with you? Morgana had been through life and death with Hizai, they were all sisters in the past, how could she not know what Hizai meant? Divide the manpower into 3, the 2 teams in front need to have enough combat power, the 3 of us and many angel sisters together are indeed the most suitable group. Hizai looked at Morgana, and her words about angel sisters actually moved Morgana a little. After all, she, Morgana, was also an angel after all. As for the remaining 2 groups, you can let Carl and Kesa stay behind as support. After finding out the specific situation outside Wukong, you can directly lead the people of the heroic company with Liu Chuang and Wanda to provide support. His eye did not stare at Morgana all the time. She had to give this arrogant demon king some face. So she explained her ideas to Sun Wukong again. Understood, Sun Wukong agreed. This arrangement is indeed the most suitable. The angels are in one group, and the heroic company on Earth is in another group. As for letting Morgana and Wanda join one of them respectively, it is naturally to strengthen the overall combat power of this group. After all, what they are facing at this moment is likely to be a Dark Lord Dormammu, who is completely free of any shackles and restrictions. It may not be possible for 2 warriors with celestial computers to suppress him. Chapter 474 Angels vs Dormammu. The king of Xianji, Hexi, the successor of Xianrun, Yan, and the former king of Xianqi, Liangbing. The 3 angel kings, led by Angel Leng, Angel Zhu, Angel Yunyan and Angel Fangxing, and dozens of Shenmekis, are crossing the space wormhole and heading to the first discovered energy anomaly point. Be careful, this time our opponent will be far more powerful than the Dark Lord Dormammu we dealt with last time on Earth. If we are severely injured by him, the result may be complete destruction, Hexi reminded. Yes, the angels answered one after another, and the Shenmekis responded to the command mechanically. We're here. While Angel Yan was speaking, the space channel in front of them completely disappeared, and in front of them appeared the real universe, which was a black mist that was constantly condensing in front of them, only tens of meters in size. Why is there only this little? Angel Yan looked at the mist in front of him and immediately felt something was wrong. Although the scale does not look very large, the intensity of this energy is extremely high. Morgana had a different opinion from Angel Yan. Leng Zhu, the heavenly blade judgment, his eye turned back and looked at Angel Leng and Angel Zhu. The 2 of them did not hesitate at all, and flew directly to a high place, holding the flaming sword in their hands high. The energy from the surrounding stars was immediately guided and gathered on the sword. After the energy was gathered, the long sword pointed directly at the black mist. In an instant, 2 extremely strong energies flew towards the black mist and bombarded the mist. However, in this mist, a group of green light was emitted at the same time, and a transparent mirror appeared in front of the mist, forcibly blocking the two energies. Can it withstand the attack of the Heavenly Blade Judgment? Angel Ling and Angel Zhu looked at the blocked Heavenly Blade Judgment and were surprised. It should be right. The one in this mist is a special existence that is enough to threaten the safety of the universe, Hizai said, and almost at the same time, the relevant information was transmitted back to the floating city on Earth. Sun Wukong and others who had been waiting for intelligence from the front in the floating city for a long time immediately began to act. Let's go. After Sun Wukong finished speaking, he led Liu Chuang and other super soldiers of the Xiaongbing company to walk out of the hall. They needed to go to space to support the location of Xianji Wang Hexi and others. Carl, the situation of the super god civilization will need to be controlled by you next. Before Sun Wukong walked out of the hall, he looked back at the god of death Carl. Understood, god of death Carl nodded and agreed. Seeing him like this, Sun Wukong did not stop at all and went directly into the wormhole, and traveled through space with other soldiers. In space, the angel team led by Hexi and Angel Yan began to mobilize more energy to attack the black fog. Human, don't go too far, a hoarse voice came from the fog. It was Dormammu's voice. In the black fog was Dormammu himself. Dormammu, you were forced to retreat last time, but you are coming back this time. Aren't you afraid that you will be liquidated by our super god civilization, like the god of the underworld, Zizan? Angel Yan stepped forward, pointed his longsword at Dormammu, and asked sternly. Li Qingyun? He is now locked in the chaos dimension. He can't come out in a short time. By the time he comes out, I will have already captured all of you and absorbed all the energy you have. Dormammu showed his true form, and his huge body seemed to be made up of pieces of prisms. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want when Qingyun is not here? Thunder flashed on the king's sword in Angel Yan's hand. She is the mistress of the super god civilization. Now that Li Qingyun is not here, she must shoulder the responsibility of protecting the super god civilization. Last time, you can indeed suppress me with the advantage of numbers, but this time, my real body has come here. How can you compete with me? After the failure last time, Dormammu came this time with more thorough preparations. Come out, my guards. Dormammu waved his hand, and a space gate appeared not far behind him. 8 tall monsters immediately walked out of the space gate. Visually, each one is at least 5 or 6 meters tall. Although, compared with Dormammu's body of hundreds of meters at the moment, it seems very small. But the power emanating from them is different from the dimensional monsters that appeared on the Earth before to cooperate with Dormammu to launch an attack. The dark aura on each of them is very strong, and they are in human form, wearing armor and holding weapons. Go, kill these birdmen, Dormammu said, pointing his hand directly at Angel Yan and others. The 8 guards immediately flew towards Angel Yan and others. Angel Ling, Angel Zhu, Angel Yunyan and Angel Fangxing flew out quickly. The strength of these 4 angels is now the top 3 generation of gods, and each of them is equipped with a weapon that is not just a flaming sword. Previously, Angel Ling and Angel Zhu used the flame sword when they used the Skyblade Judgment, but now after close combat, the flame sword directly switched to the god-killing dark silver sword. However, the 8 guards on the opposite side were not simple in combat. The long swords they wielded slashed at the guards, but they could not kill them completely in one breath. Moreover, after the wounds left on their bodies by the attack, they could be immediately repaired by their self-healing ability. After the first wave of contact, only 4 guards stayed to stop Angel Ling and the others, and the remaining 4 rushed directly towards Angel Yan and the other 2. I'll stop them. You attack Dormammu's body, Angel Yan said, but just as she was about to take action, she was pulled by Hizai. Let me do it. After Hizai finished speaking, 3 identical clones walked out directly behind her. I forgot that you have clones. Angel Yan saw these clones of Hizai and understood the current situation. Go ahead, at least delay until Sun Wukong and his men come to support us with his Xiaongbing, Hizai said. In her opinion, they couldn't fight Dormammu now, at least not with just the 7 of them. It's still unknown who will win or lose, Angel Yan said, turning around and flying towards Dormammu. She is the thunder god of war, she is the sharpest knife of the mellow celestial court. Even though she has left the super god universe and the mellow celestial court, her fighting style has not changed. When encountering a battle, she will directly confront the enemy head-on and cut all enemies with a skyblade. This is what she is best at? Chapter 475, Grim Reaper Carl and Lady Death. The battle between the Angel Squad and Dormammu unfolded in space. Hizai controlled 3 clones at the same time, and together with Angel Ling and other 4 warriors, he delayed the 8 guards under Dormammu. Angel Yan and Morgana rushed towards Dormammu himself. Angel of Judgment, Angel's Spear. Angel Yan raised his left hand, and a huge silver angel appeared not far in front of Dormammu. In the hand of the silver angel, a dark silver spear was raised high, and then stabbed towards Dormammu. Demon's Claw. Morgana did not hold back. She opened her hands, and 2 huge black iron claws appeared and slapped towards Dormammu's head. Facing the attacks launched by Angel Yan and Morgana, Dormammu did not dodge at all, but stood there and let the attack fall. Boom! 2 violent collision sounds came, and waves of energy ripples were stirred on Dormammu's body, but his body was not actually damaged. Such an attack is only good enough to tickle me. Dormammu looked at Angel Yan and Morgana, his face full of mockery. Don't be too proud too soon, Angel Yan said, holding up the king's command in his hand. Countless energies in the space immediately began to gather and then transformed into thunder. Sky Blade, provide unlimited energy, strengthen the power of thunder, Angel Yan silently chanted in her heart, and the celestial level 4 calculation Skyblade controlled by her directly mobilized huge energy from the universe to maintain the blessing attack. Is this energy drawn from the universe? Dormammu saw the energy gathered on Angel Yan's long sword, and immediately realized that the power of this attack might be very strong. So, he was no longer arrogant, opened his mouth, and shot out a strong laser. Dormammu was going to blast Angel Yan into powder. But when this laser was shot out, a pair of huge iron claws blocked Angel Yan's body. Morgana. Angel Yan looked at the figure in front of him who blocked Dormammu's attack with his demon claws, and sighed a little. We have worked together for several years. Why do you look so unbelievable when you see me helping you? Morgana turned around and looked at the surprised Angel Yan, but shook her head helplessly. It is true that we have cooperated for a few years, but we were enemies for 7,000 years before. Angel Yan did not say that she did not accept Morgana's current identity. On the contrary, she was grateful that there was a powerful warrior like Morgana now. However, whether it was acceptance or gratitude, they would still be surprised to face such a thing based on their past experiences. Okay, Morgana also understood Angel Yan's psychology. In fact, if she was saved by Angel Yan in the current situation, she would also be surprised. I'm fine, Angel Yan said, and when Morgana heard her words, she immediately put away the demon claws and quickly moved aside. The moment Morgana moved aside, Angel Yan swung out the longsword in his hand. The longsword carried the endless power of thunder and shot towards Dormammu. Dormammu's huge body meant that he had very poor mobility and dodge ability, so he had no way to dodge the longsword that was flying at him. Seeing that Wang Ming had penetrated his outer defense and pierced his forehead, endless thunder energy was released instantly, and a strong pain spread throughout Dormammu's body. A painful groan came from Dormammu's mouth. He raised his hand and wanted to pull out the longsword and crush it completely. But the moment he raised his hand, Angel Yan directly summoned the longsword back by transporting it through a micro-wormhole. It seems that our attack can still break your defense. Angel Yan looked at Dormammu, who was in pain because of the attack at the moment, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Although this attack did not cause any serious injuries to Dormammu, Angel Yan knew that his attack was effective. In other words, they were not completely powerless when facing Dormammu. It was just a coincidence. I don't believe you can always succeed. Dormammu put down the hand on his forehead, raised his huge head and looked at Angel Yan again. If there is a first time, there can be a second time, Angel Yan said, and began to gather strength again. However, this time Dormammu will not give her another chance. The huge hand directly slapped Angel Yan. Seeing Dormammu's attack coming, Angel Yan could only stop and dodge. At the same time, Morgana merged the 2 demon claws together, turning them into a larger demon claw, and smashed towards Dormammu. Dormammu suffered a loss from Angel Yan, so he would not take Morgana's attack lightly. He raised his other hand, and his arm directly blocked Morgana's demon claw and blocked it. In the following battle, Angel Yan, Morgana and Dormammu fell into temporary entanglement in this mutual attack and defense. On the other side, after Sun Wukong left the floating city on Earth. At this moment, in the hall, the god of death Karl is keeping abreast of the situation of all parties through a Styx computer. Sun Wukong and others have all left, and now the Earth is ruled by him and Kesa, 2 top powerhouses. I heard that you are also called the god of death. Suddenly, A voice with a little charm came. Then, a woman in purple tights appeared behind Carl. "My name is Carl, and the god of death is just a name they call me." Carl turned around and looked at the person in front of him whom he had never met. "You should be Lady Death, right? The person who really controls death in this world, the god of death." Carl has never seen death, but in the Marvel Universe today, Eternity and Galactus have already appeared, so the existence of the other 5 gods is beyond doubt. The woman in front of him can appear without Carl noticing, so her strength must at least be beyond the existence of the dimensional demon god. In addition to the words that Death said when he appeared just now, Carl can guess that the one in front of him must be Death, one of the 5 gods. "You are very smart and very powerful." Death has been on Earth for a while. Although there are many powerful people on this planet, the only one that can interest her, besides Li Qingyun, is the one in front of her. "I am indeed very powerful, but not enough to pose a threat to you," Death Carl said. "You seem to be very resistant to me." Death stood up, and as she moved, her figure was perfectly displayed. "I am not interested in the opposite sex." After Death Carl abandoned his physical body and became an illusion, carnal desires were no longer effective for him. And since you have a relationship with the Lord of the Divine River, it is best not to contact any other opposite sex, otherwise you will regret it. After saying this, Death Carl turned around and continued to stare at the information from all over the universe. He needed to continue to perform the task he needed to perform at the moment. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.